Marvel crosses over with Star Wars, and the Avengers invade. This video is purely for entertainment, and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting, and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Discovery of the Robot Squad. After retrieving some supplies from the spaceship, the clones, Jedi Knights, and 2 Avengers began to build a temporary camp. They also tried to repair the communication function on the spaceship, so that they could contact the outside world, but the communication equipment was damaged beyond repair due to the crash. A small fire was burning, and Rex and Captain America made a tent for Anakin, who was still unconscious. Captain America looked around, and found that the view was all endless prairie, and then said, "We can't stay here forever." Arla also nodded. "Skywalker can't hold on for too long. What should we do?" Ant-Man asked. "Split up, so that we can increase the search range," Captain America suggested. Arla agreed to Captain America's plan, and began to assign people. Bly, Flash, Lucky, Cameron. "The 4 of you will search south with me and Ahsoka." What? Ahsoka obviously didn't expect that she would also join the search team, but I can't just abandon my master like this. If I were injured, my master would not abandon me. Arla put her hand on the young Jedi apprentice's shoulder and said softly, "Ahsoka, believe me, I understand your concern for your master, and Master Voss has done the same for me. But the only way you can help your master is to find rescue. We must stay calm and rational now and not let our emotions get the better of us." Rex stepped forward and said, "Don't worry, kid. I'll stay and take care of the general." Captain America said to Ant-Man, "You stay here with Rex." "Are you sure, Captain?" Ant-Man asked. He didn't want to be separated from Captain America, because the Avengers had been separated all this time, and he was fed up with this bad situation. "We have to do this if we want to help Anakin and get off this planet. Hey everyone." Everyone was drawn to the sudden call of Clone Trooper Echo, who ran up to them with a strange wooden board. He held the board up for everyone to see. "I don't think we are alone on this planet." The board showed a bipedal intelligent creature wielding a spear in the face of some kind of quadrupedal beast. Soon after, the group gathered their supplies and weapons, and Domino Bone Squad, led by Captain America, searched north. "General Sekira, what exactly is our plan?" Bly asked. "As risky as it sounds, we need to find the natives of this planet. Maybe they can help." Arla replied. "General, how do we find them?" Bly asked. Ahsoka carefully observed the wooden board brought back by Echo, and after thinking for a moment, she raised her head and said, "I think the natives of this planet may live next to or inside a big tree." Ayla praised. Ahsoka observed very carefully. "The wooden board provided by Echo provides us with clues. Well, let's set off as soon as possible while it's still light." Ahsoka walked to Anakin, who was still unconscious, and said, "Master, I will be back soon. Rex and Mr. Lang will protect your safety." Ayla also said to Rex, "Turn on your locator. We will be back before dawn." The 2 groups quickly began to search in their predetermined direction. Captain America walked in front of the Domino Bone team with a shield in his hand. This is his usual style. He never lets his team members walk in front of him to face unknown risks. The Domino Bone team followed behind him, not far away, but a little distance away from him. "This is the leader of the Avengers," Echo murmured with a little awe. "The man who led Colonel Rhodes." Number 5 whispered. "I wonder how a colonel would willingly follow a captain," Echo thought. "Colonel Rhodes followed him, which means he must be very powerful," Number 5 said from a high vantage point. Captain America suddenly stopped and raised his hand to signal the clones to stop. Then he leaned down, and the clone team hurriedly did the same. Captain America glanced at the clones and motioned them to move closer. "It seems that something is moving nearby," Captain America whispered. Echo immediately took out the telescope and began to search the area. He looked around, and then his eyes stopped not far from them. These creatures are quadrupeds, with fur around the front and back legs, 3 claws and beaks, and their features are similar to some kind of birds. There are about 6 of them, and they all move like humans. "They don't look friendly," Echo said directly. "What are they?" asked the heavy burden. "Not sure, it seems to be some kind of bird," Echo said. "Captain, what should we do?" asked the Joker. Captain America ordered, "We don't know what kind of creatures they are, and we are not sure if they are aggressive, so we should bypass them and continue to move forward." Suddenly, the creatures made loud noises and ran away. "What's going on? They shouldn't have noticed us," Lively asked loudly. "They must have been scared by something," Echo speculated. Captain America walked to the place where the creatures had stopped to see if he could find any clues. He found a spear and some ropes. "Captain, what did you find?" Changdon asked. "It seems that the locals have encountered these creatures a long time ago," Captain America said, picking up the spear and checking it. "Do you think they are hunting these creatures?" Echo speculated. "More like defending their homes." Captain America widened his eyes and saw something in the distance. "Lie down." Captain America immediately ordered in a low voice. "Captain? What's wrong? Did you find anything?" Number 5 asked. Captain America took Number 5's telescope and began to stare at the front. At the same time, he reminded Changdon, who was also holding a telescope. 11 o'clock. Changdon blinked in confusion. Captain America realized that he didn't understand and then explained, "This is the military expression on Earth. I will tell you later. Look there." The heavy burden looked through the telescope in the direction that the American captain pointed, and his body immediately tensed up. "That is, robots. It looks like we have landed on a planet occupied by the Separatists. Judging from the number of tanks and infantry, it is safe to say that this is a patrol," the American captain confirmed calmly. "What on earth are the robots doing on such an isolated and backward planet?" the living treasure asked, holding up his blaster. "Put down the blaster, living treasure. You will let them find us," Number 5 growled in a low voice. "Number 5 is right. Ella, Bly, Rex and others may not know that there are separatists here. Contact them immediately and tell them the news." The American captain stared at the A-80 tank in the distance and said worriedly, "Received, sir. But we can only contact the nearest Captain Rex. General Ella is too far away from us, and the communicator cannot contact her." Echo responded. "Contact him immediately, tell Rex the news, and let him try to contact Ella," the American captain said immediately. "Captain, what should we do next?" No 5 asked. "Follow them. If this is a patrol, then they may take us to their base, and then we can find a way to infiltrate and get in touch with the Galactic Republic," Captain America analyzed. Chapter 52, Hope Van Dyne. As Captain America and the Domino Bone Squad trekked north, Arla, Ahsoka, and the clones took a short break and continued to move south. Arla walked in front of the team, and Ahsoka followed her. There was nothing here except a large piece of grass. Bly suddenly said, "General, there is a big tree ahead." Everyone looked up and saw a strange big tree in the distance. They soon arrived near the big tree and searched around it carefully, but in the end, no trace of the natives was found. The clone soldier named Lucky guessed, "Maybe in the tree, Commander. I found something." Bly's voice came from a huge tree root exposed on the ground, which formed an arch. The others went around the tree root and found Commander Bly and the clone Flash standing in front of a strangely shaped oval rock. Ahsoka approached the strange object, tapped it lightly with her fingers, and then said, "This should not be a stone, more like an oversized nut or seed. Be careful." Isla shouted loudly, pulling Ahsoka, Bly and Flash back quickly. Another giant nut fell where they had been standing, and several more fell around them. "No wonder no one lives around this place. It's too dangerous," Ahsoka exclaimed. While all the clones and Ahsoka kept their eyes on the top of the tree canopy, Arla looked around the area and noticed several strange sights. A group of craters near the roots of the trees, and on the other side, a trail ran down the hillside. Ant-Man sat in the tent, checking and adjusting his suit, while Rex checked the grass around the tent. "Did you hear the rustling again?" Ant-Man asked in the tent. "Yes, there must be something there." "Robots?" Ant-Man asked nervously. "No, if it was robots, they would have attacked us directly by now," Rex said. Rex returned to the crashed frigate and grabbed some weapons and ammunition, just in case. Meanwhile, Ant-Man kept checking his suit and keeping himself calm while waiting for Captain America and the others to return. Suddenly he was startled by a painful groan from beside him. He looked down and saw that it was Anakin, who had woken up and immediately whispered, "Anakin, don't move, you're injured." "Ant-Man is right, General. You've been unconscious for a day," Rex said. Anakin just shook his head and said with difficulty, "There's something outside." Just as he finished speaking, a piercing scream was heard, and in the grass in front of them, a full-egged beast with a bird's beak jumped out of the tall grass and rushed towards them at full speed. Ant-Man's eyes widened in shock, and Rex rushed forward to chase it away. The head of the unknown beast hit Rex's chest and knocked him back. The tent collapsed instantly, pressing on Ant-Man and Anakin. Then the bird-beaked beast opened its mouth and jumped towards Anakin. "No." Ant-Man stood in front of Anakin to block the beast. It instantly bit Ant-Man's arm and then threw it around. Ant-Man screamed in pain. As its jaws continued to exert force, it suddenly fell down, taking Ant-Man with it, because Rex quickly recovered and shot the creature in the head, killing it. Ant-Man pulled his arm out of its sharp beak, moved it and found that it was only a flesh wound, and quickly bandaged the wound with the cloth of the torn tent. In this case, in addition to the injured Anakin, Ant-Man and Rex did not dare to be careless and kept guarding around Anakin. Until dawn, Arla and his group finally arrived at the big village. The so-called house in the village was the huge nut they had seen under the big tree before. The group entered the village and found that the village was inhabited by short, thin, and furry lemurs. Many people retreated in fear and nervousness, staring at the strangers walking towards the village, full of vigilance. Lemon. Arla recognized the species. "Do you know them?" Ahsoka asked, unfamiliar with the species. "They are the natives of the planet Mikito. I didn't know they had a colony here." The bearded, yellow-robed lemon leader stepped forward and examined the group. "Who are you? Separatists? Come to claim more territory for your glorious revolution?" he asked hostilely. "Separatists?" Ahsoka repeated in horror. "We are Jedi Knights from the Galactic Republic. Our spaceship crashed, and one of our men was seriously injured. We came to you for help," Arla answered quickly. "However," the lemon leader said quickly, somewhat anxiously, "when the war broke out, we came to this planet to settle down in order to maintain neutrality in exchange for peace. But those separatists and their battle robots discovered this planet and have been harassing this village and my people. Fortunately, none of us died or were injured, but with your arrival, this fragile state of peace is likely to be broken. But we are on the side of justice. We are fighting for freedom, not to be enslaved like you," Ahsoka said firmly. "We are not enslaved." The chief shook his head and continued, "You are not fighting for freedom either. Only you Jedi Knights deceive yourselves into believing that you are fighting for freedom and fighting for justice. Now, please leave immediately. I don't want to incur the wrath of the robots stationed on this planet." Ahsoka shook her head and said firmly, "If there are robots on this planet harassing you, then as Jedi Knights and clones, it is our responsibility to fight them. Violence will only lead to more violence." The chief retorted, "This is an endless cycle. Other aliens have been harassing the robot base. Although she has not been discovered yet, it is bad enough. I know I shouldn't help her." The clone Cameron was confused by the she mentioned by the lemon leader, but before he could comment, he suddenly waved his arms and shouted, "Cameron, what's wrong?" Bly asked. Cameron took off his helmet and looked around with a little confusion. "I just saw something flying in front of my helmet. It looked like a human or a fairy. It had a pair of wings, but they were very small." Cameron explained. "Ah, here she comes again." The leader rolled his eyes and said. A young lemming man wearing a vest and a hat stopped him and said, "Father, don't be so rude. You know, if it weren't for her, our situation would be much worse than it is now." Although the leader wanted to refute, he knew his son was right. The leader lowered his head and muttered something in his mouth, then looked up and said, "Hope, come out. These are not separatists. They don't mean to hurt us." Ahsoka's eyes stared fiercely in the direction of the leader, then quickly looked around, and then shouted, "Hope Van Dyne, also known as the Wasp by the Avengers?" After a while, someone really appeared in front of them, and her appearance was exactly the same as Ant-Man, who was taking care of the injured Anakin. Although her armor had different colors and patterns, it had obvious similarities with Ant-Man's armor. After the helmet disappeared, the appearance of a young woman with a ponytail was revealed. She stared at Ahsoka, who was smiling at her suspiciously, and asked cautiously, "How do you know who I am?" Ahsoka just smiled and said, "Ant-Man will be very happy to see you." Hope Van Dyne's heart almost stopped beating. "Scott?" Hope asked in a low voice, praying that this was not a joke. The Lemon leader looked at all this and just sighed and said to his son, "Gather some supplies and go with them. Although I don't want to do this, I can't ignore the request for help." Hearing this, Ahsoka smiled. The leader added his conditions. "There is one condition. One of you Jedi Knights must stay, and the rest must all leave. If the Separatists come back and find so many strangers of you, it will mean the destruction of my village." Ayla took the initiative to stay. She ordered Ahsoka and the clones to take the Lumen back to the camp to rescue Anakin. Chapter 53 Reunion. Ant-Man, Rex, and Anakin Skywalker had a long hard night. Since killing the first beast that attacked them, the trio had to deal with a whole group of these bird-beaked beasts throughout the night. Rex stood in front of Ant-Man, who supported Anakin with his good arm, while Anakin raised his lightsaber tremblingly. The clone captain faced off against the last two beasts standing 10 meters away from them. Suddenly the two bird-beaked beasts began to beat the ground with their sharp claws and roared at them. "They're going to attack," Anakin said. "Did we crash land on their territory? Seriously, is there anything else for them to eat here besides us?" Ant-Man asked loudly. "They are coming," Rex shouted, pointing his rifle at the charging beasts. Unfortunately, the two beasts charged at the same time, leaving Rex with no time to kill the other one. To their surprise, a familiar shield smashed into the neck of the beast running towards them, while another was quickly killed by a blaster. "Captain," Ant-Man said happily, "Yeah, we were being targeted by the ding-dangs," 5 said as the team walked towards them. "We followed the patrol back to a base stationed on this planet." Captain America asked, "Are the others back?" Ant-Man, "What happened here? Were you attacked?" "Yes, those bird-beaked beasts. If you had come back later, I don't know if you could still see us," Ant-Man said thankfully. 5 stepped forward and said, "We found a droid patrol and tracked them to the Separatist base stationed on this planet, so a lot of time was wasted." "Master, Rex, Captain Rogers." Everyone turned around and saw Ahsoka, Bly, Flash, Cameron and Lucky had also returned, along with a strange creature that was curled up in a ball like a hedgehog and was tumbling forward quickly. It was not until it got close to the camp that the creature stood up and everyone realized that it was a lemur-like creature. However, this is not what Ant-Man and Captain America are focused on. Their eyes rested on the woman standing next to Ahsoka, who also noticed them and walked over slowly. Anakin felt that Ant-Man, who was supporting him, wanted to go find the woman, so he wisely let Rex support him. Ant-Man quickly ran over and shouted happily, "Hope." Hope also jumped into his arms and hugged Ant-Man tightly. Hope kissed Ant-Man fiercely, tears falling from the corners of his eyes. Ant-Man smiled and hugged Hope again, with no intention of letting go. He would never let go and never wanted to be separated from Hope again. Hope looked up and saw Captain America smiling. She felt Ant-Man still hugging her tightly and felt a little embarrassed. Then she broke free from Ant-Man's embrace and shouted with a smile, "Captain." Captain America was happy to see a teammate again and jokingly said, "It's good to see you again, Hope." On the side, Ahsoka walked up to Anakin. Despite Anakin's current poor physical condition, he smiled easily and said, "You look very busy, little brat." "I thought you were busy too," Ahsoka teased. Anakin laughed heartily. He knew very well how worried Ahsoka was about him, but this slightly unbridled smile immediately affected his wound, and he groaned in pain. Ahsoka then remembered why they had gone out to look for the natives, and hurriedly turned back to look at the lemon who were walking towards them. "Master, this is Wag-2. He is the village doctor and will heal your wounds." Ahsoka introduced the Lumen who came with them to Anakin. Wag-2 said sincerely and confidently, "You will recover completely soon." Then, he said to Ahsoka, "Prepare a stretcher for him and carry him back to the village. The herbs and other necessary medicines are there. I will heal your 2 friends who were bitten on the arms by the Pharaoh Eagle Mastiff." Everyone took the remaining supplies they could carry, and carried Anakin on a simple stretcher and quickly returned to the Lemon village, where Arla was anxiously waiting for them. Anakin was taken to the treatment room of Vugthu, where the Lemon healers performed some minor surgery on Anakin to help him recover quickly. Meanwhile, the rest of the clones helped the Lemon with their work, and the villagers provided them all with something to eat. Much to their delight, Ant-Man and the Wasp are basically inseparable now, with the Wasp carefully rebandaging her boyfriend's arm. Ahsoka and Arla sat on a hilltop, overlooking the village. Ahsoka broke the silence and said, "You are right, Master Sekira." Ella didn't react for a moment, and asked in confusion, "What?" Ahsoka played with the small stone and said, "If I had insisted on staying with Master, I might never have found this place with you, and I might not have been able to help Master. You two also found a lost Avenger." Both women turned around to see Michoa walk over to them and sit next to Ella. Captain America said seriously, "I owe you two so much. Thank you both for finding hope. Each of them is very important to me." Ella said kindly, "Mr. Rogers, don't forget that it was you, Ahsoka, and Anakin who came to save me and my legion when I asked for help." Ahsoka suddenly said, "Stop thanking each other here. We are friends, aren't we?" The three people laughed in unison. Ella's tone then darkened. "We still need to find a way to leave this planet." Captain America added, "There is also the issue of the Separatist base that Domino Bone and I discovered that needs to be resolved." Ahsoka also said, "So Chief Watt did not lie to us. There are really Separatists on this planet." Arla glanced at the tired Ahsoka and said, "We will deal with them when the time comes. Ahsoka, now you need to rest. Your master, all of we will need you next. You can't let yourself get tired." "Yes, Ahsoka, go and rest with Skywalker," Captain America also suggested. Ahsoka didn't argue, as she could definitely feel a wave of exhaustion coming over her. Ella and Captain America were still sitting on the hill, watching the sunset in the distance over the village. The atmosphere was somewhat subtle. Ella shook her head and said softly, "Captain Rogers, from the first time I met you, I felt that you were always in a highly nervous state. I think it was because you came to a completely unfamiliar environment. Today, you saved the lives of thousands of soldiers and reunited with your lost teammates. Please allow yourself to relax in this beautiful moment." Normally, Captain America would not agree to such advice. He is always the one who tells others you need to rest, while he himself seems to never get tired and no one tells him anything like that. However, today, in a strange galaxy, Arla Sekira, a warrior as principled and disciplined as him, tells him that he needs to rest. "Thank you again, Ella." "Me too, Steve." Ella looked at the sunset in the distance and smiled sweetly. Chapter 54, The Stubborn Lemon Leader. Captain America, Ant-Man, the Wasp, Arla Sekira and Lieutenant Bly hid in the tall grass, observing the Separatist base from a distance. They have now determined that the Separatists are stationed on the planet Meriden. The Wasp whispered, "This is the base where the robots are stationed. I discovered it before I met the Lemon." Ella asked, "Has this base always been here?" "It should be like this. It was built at least a month ago," Bly asked. "What else are they doing besides building a base here? I don't see any signs that they are building a robot factory nearby. Could it be inside the base? I don't know. But they are definitely doing something," Hope said as he stared at the robot's base. Captain America thought for a while and gave his thoughts. In addition to being a CI's base, this could also be a test base. Ant-Man also said, "It makes sense. Far away from the Galactic Republic, and on such a backward planet, no one would suspect that the enemy is stationed here. With such a hidden base, they have ample time to formulate more evil plans." Bly offered his suggestion. "If we are lucky, we can take control of a Separatist ship and leave Meriden. The premise is that there is a spaceship in this base." Ella added. It wasn't long before Ant-Man and the Wasp shrank down and became smaller, and the Wasp took Ant-Man into the air to get a better view of the entire base. Captain America asked in the communicator, "Hope, did you see anything?" "There are no ships in this base. There are just a lot of robots surrounding a cannon, doing something unknown," Hope said. Suddenly a spotlight momentarily shines on the Wasp, but thankfully her shrunken state does not raise any alarm. "A cannon? What cannon?" Bly asked in confusion. "I don't know," the Wasp said. preparing to fly down to take a closer look. "Hey, Captain, I have a great idea," Ant-Man said in the communication. "What? Wait a moment." Ant-Man quietly landed on the radio backpack of a nearby robot. Then the robot suddenly said, "Wow. What?" and then suddenly fell silent. Leaning forward slightly, several robots nearby noticed the sudden cry. "Hey, X-29, what's going on?" X-29 remained silent, then suddenly seemed to wake up, raised his arm, and rubbed his head, looked around, and asked, "Why did you hit me?" "You seem to have a malfunction," and suddenly shut down. X-29 waved his hands and said, "Oops. Second, don't know. You probably need to get it checked for maintenance." Maybe, go ahead." X-29, the X-29 robot nodded and left the robot group. The Wasp floated in the air, looking down curiously, then tentatively called out, "Scott, I don't know about you, but I find it weird to be a puppeteer here. I wonder if that Ultron guy does the same thing." Ant-Man said in X-29's body. "What did you just do?" Captain America asked. Ant-Man explained, "I took control of the droid. Actually, Anakin told me this. He said that each droid had a central command, so I thought I could cut off their command transmission and input my own commands. I didn't expect it to work." Ant-Man manipulated his puppet robot and the Wasp to enter the interior of the Separatist base. The Wasp sat on the shoulder of the X-29 robot and commanded, "Scott, turn left. The armory is in front." "Did you see anything useful?" Ella asked through the communication. Ant-Man said, "Apart from some guns, there was also a weird dome-shaped thing." "Dome-shaped thing?" After a while, Ant-Man said, "I remember now. It's an energy shield." Bly said regretfully, "If the robot attacks, we can use it for protection. It's just a pity that we can't take it away now." "How can we get it out of the base?" Ella asked thoughtfully. The Wasp thought about it, then she changed back to normal size, took out a small disc from her belt, made some settings, and threw the disc towards the shield. Ella and the others didn't see what the two were doing, nor did they see the shield shrink. After hitting the Wasp's small disc. Ant-Man smiled and said mysteriously, "Oh, you'll be surprised when we come back." Everyone was confused, not knowing what these two guys in love were doing, so Captain America asked, "What are you doing? You guys are going to like this thing." Ant-Man said excitedly. Lemming Village. Anakin looked at the miniature energy shield in Ant-Man's hand and asked in disbelief, "So you shrunk it and took it away? What else can you shrink? Can this energy shield still be used?" Ant-Man shrugged and said, "Everything I've encountered so far seems to be able to be shrunk. In fact, I don't know what can't be shrunk, but it seems that PIM particles can be applied to everything." Captain America interrupted their conversation at the right time and said, "Okay, let's not talk about this for now. Anakin, how do you feel?" "Much better. Just a little sore now. Give me a few days and I'll be fully recovered," Anakin muttered. Cough cough. Ayla turned around and saw the leader of the Lemon standing in the doorway. "I want to talk to you and this guy with a shield," Tewatka said seriously. Standing at the door, Ella frowned, looked up at Captain America for a moment, nodded, and followed the leader to the largest pod, housed in the village with Captain America. After entering the house, the Lemon leader motioned for them to sit down. "What do you want to talk about, sir?" Captain America asked as he sat down next to Ella. "For the past few weeks, the robots have been moving through our village," Tewatka said wearily. "We have not been harmed or suffered any loss, but their presence has disrupted our way of life." Ayla and Captain America both remained silent, knowing that Tewatka had more to say. "But now that you are here, I estimate that it is only a matter of time before a conflict breaks out. When two hostile forces appear in the same area, this is inevitable." Ayla said politely, "Chief, we are not bringing conflict here. This is not our intention." The Lemon leader interrupted her and said sternly, "No matter what, you have appeared here, and what will follow is a war between you and the robots. You must know that my people and I came to this planet to avoid war." Captain America said, "In my hometown, the global war broke out, and those innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the war were eventually dragged into it. What's more, For an organization, in most cases, this is inevitable and cannot be avoided just because you want to. The leader shot back, that may be a reason for you. But we are a nation that believes in peace. We do not participate in violence because it will only breed more violence. The Jedi and the Galactic Republic claim to be the pacifiers of this conflict, but now more and more planets are caught in the flames of war. Isla was speechless for a moment, and Captain America said firmly, war is sometimes inevitable. Some people in the galaxy hope to use war to achieve their own ulterior motives. This is a result that cannot be prevented, no matter how much you believe in peace. Chief, I understand your desire for peace, but the Jedi Knights also have this belief in peace, but their methods are more direct and effective. I think time will prove everything, Ella interrupted. The leader sneered, you are also for peace. How can you say you are for peace when you are fighting and leading the clone army to death? That's because the Separatists threaten the security of the galaxy, Ella countered. The leader of the Lumen said sarcastically, so you didn't try to negotiate with your former Jedi Knight to coup? Instead, you decided to solve this problem with war. It seems that you have a very simple mind, Miss Jedi. Captain America expressed his support. If sitting down and negotiating can solve the problem, there will never be a war. What I see is that the Galactic Republic is desperately trying to resolve and avoid this war. When you try to win before the war starts, your thinking will sacrifice many innocent lives. Isla also said, I can understand that you and all the lemming people are pursuing peace, but what about the Separatists outside your village? They are threatening your lives. If they come to the village to plunder your resources, what will you do? We will not offer any resistance. Captain America pointed out bluntly, they will get worse. We didn't do anything to provoke them. I know it sounds corny, but if you do nothing I'm afraid you'll all be slaughtered. The robot army is at your doorstep now. You should at least try to find a place to hide until this is over, or seek protection for yourself, instead of being lambs to the slaughter. The leader of the Lemon tribe still said stubbornly, our belief has allowed us to live in peace for many years. We still hold on to this belief, and will remain steadfast in the future. Isla was somewhat shocked by the leader's stubborn words and asked sharply, even at the cost of your lives? We would rather die than take the life of another. Before they could continue arguing, the chief's son, Wagtu, rushed in and said, the Separatists are here. Ella and Captain America looked at each other, and Captain America asked, where? How far away? It's not far outside the village. It may be here in a few minutes, Captain. America and Ella walked out of the leader's room together and said, we are not ready to fight yet. Now we need to get everyone else out of here and hide somewhere else. Isla also thought about the consequences. If they find any trace of us here, the Separatists will raze this village to the ground. The leader of the Lemon people, who was following closely behind them, said angrily, it is because of your existence that my village is in danger. We know, Chief, but none of us want any of you caught in the middle of a war. The leader quickly passed Captain America and Ella and said without looking back, that's why you must leave immediately. Now, I must go greet our new guests who are coming soon. Ella and Captain America looked at each other, somewhat speechless at the stubbornness of the Lemon leader, shook their heads, and ran to the others, hoping to rescue the injured Anakin in time. They knew they could not force the Lemon to join the war unless they woke up themselves. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55, The Birth of the Incinerator Tank. Rex, 5, and Echo hid in the grass and watched as a large Separatist ship slowly descended to the ground. Bly's voice came from the communicator. Rex, have you found anything? Robot spaceship. Come back quickly, we are moving General Skywalker to safety, Bly said. Eventually, the robot spacecraft landed near the village. As the robots came out, a team of B1 and B2 battle robots came down the gangway, quickly forming two teams on the gangway, followed by a fat Neimoidian. Is this the planet Meriton? The Neimoidian asked the robot beside him with an arrogant attitude. Yes, General. The Separatist general was in deep thought until he saw the lemon leader approaching. Then he forced a fake smile and said, "Hello, I'm General Loke Derd of the Alliance of Independent Systems. I'm T-Watt, leader of the colony. I believe you are aware that you are under the protection of the Separatists, aren't you?" The general interrupted. "Your robot base is well known here." Loke Derd walked past the leader of the lemon people and said arrogantly, "Then you should consider yourself lucky to live under such a powerful umbrella." Watt quickly caught up with him, walked beside Derd, and said, "General, we are a nation that believes in peace." Loke Derd ignored the lemon leader, waved him off, and said, "If you really believe in peace, then stand aside. I want to check out my new colony." Tewat could only watch as Derd ordered the robots to inspect the village, and it wasn't an inspection, it was more like a looting. The robots demolished various houses, and many lemon people ran around in fear. Wagtu, who was standing at the back of the crowd, asked in shock, "What are they doing? We didn't even do anything radical to them. Why are they doing this?" Ahsoka said bitterly, "The actions of these robots are controlled by compiled programs, and they all follow the instructions of that fat man. It is unknown what the Jedi Knights feel, but the 3 Avengers members are now extremely angry because they think they can't do anything to help these peaceful villagers. Are we really going to sit here like idiots?" Ant-Man asked angrily, clearly frustrated with their avoidance of the robots. Ahsoka looked back at the 2 Jedi Masters and Captain America. Her eyes were filled with obvious pleading, begging the Jedi Masters and Captain America to do something for the panicked and helpless Lumen people. Unfortunately, Captain America shook his head firmly. "Although I hate to watch robots destroy the Lemon village as much as you do, we really need to hide now." Anakin nodded and said, "That's right. All we can do now is hide in the bushes and wait for things to develop further." Ahsoka clenched her fists in frustration before keeping her head down and following the clones, Jedi Masters, and Avengers out of the village. Soon, the droids continued to inspect the village, and after a long while they gathered in front of Tut, and the droid commander reported to the Separatist general, "General, there is nothing related to the Galactic Republic in the village. This isn't the first time your robot army has done this to my people, General," Tewat said. Derd smiled evilly and said, "Chief, then we will have to check more in the future." "So we are such a threat to your battle robots?" Tewat said sarcastically. Derd just smiled. "Your people are smarter than you appear." After a while, the Separatist forces left, leaving behind a devastated Lemon village. Wagtu saw his father return to the village and ran to him. "Father, are you hurt?" Tewat just shook his head silently. Varg said excitedly, "Then it looks like the Jedi and their allies are safe." T-Watt said angrily, "It is because of them that we, the Lemming people, are in danger. Father, you can't blame them for things that are beyond their control. We have to find a way to deal with that fat guy now. When he comes, he will not let our village go." Wag retorted, "Wag, are you going to abandon our faith?" Wager said firmly, "If abandoning my faith can ensure the safety of the village, then I would rather do that." In the grass far from the village, the Jedi, clones, and Avengers awaited the outcome, each with clear anger at what they had witnessed. Rex paced back and forth, sighing in frustration and saying, "I just can't understand why the Lumen can't stand up and fight back." "Because they lack courage," Ahsoka said angrily. "On the contrary, Ahsoka, sometimes it takes great courage to stick to your beliefs," Arla said philosophically. The Wasp gently patted Ahsoka's shoulder and said, "Ahsoka, I know this makes you angry, but we can't force them to give up what they have been holding on to for years. It will take time for this to change." Ahsoka bowed her head and remained silent. Anakin said, "But right now, our main concern should be finding a ship to leave this planet." "What should we do, General?" asked the heavy burden. Anakin smiled confidently and said, "It's simple. A brand new spaceship has just landed here. We just need to wait for the right time." Upon hearing this, Rex said briskly, "Stealing from the Separatists? I must participate in this operation." Ant-Man also said, "At this time, and we already know where the base is stationed." The Wasp was about to speak when suddenly, she seemed to see something out of the corner of her eye. Turning her head, she found a red light in the tall grass. "Robot!" the Wasp shouted, pointing at a grey robot that was crawling out of the bushes and preparing to escape. Captain America quickly grabbed the shield from behind and threw it at the robot, knocking it to the ground in an instant. He walked over to the robot and picked up the shield, saying, "It seems that the Separatists want to conduct a thorough inspection of the entire village, not just within the village." After thinking for a moment, Ella looked up at everyone and said, "We need to act quickly, because we are not sure whether the robots have spread the news that we are here." Bly ordered his clone team, Flash, Cameron, Lucky, the three of you go back to the village and hide. If the robot comes back, report immediately. Domino team, same to you, Rex added. Where are we going? Ahsoka asked. Captain America replied, of course, to monitor their base. If I remember correctly, there is a huge tree nearby. We can monitor the entire robot base from the tree. Ella pointed to the big tree in the distance. Over there, everyone climbed up the giant tree, and they stood on the high branches, with the Separatist base in the distance point. The lone Separatist dropship now stood quietly in the center of the base, with a reinforced droid battalion patrolling around the ship. It seems that the fat guy is not only bad, but also quite cautious. Ant-Man muttered to himself. Rex pointed to the front of the base and said, "Hey, look what they dragged out of the base." The droids and General Derd brought out an A-80 tank equipped with a special cannon. It seems that the cannon you two talked about is ready. Anakin said to Ant-Man and the Wasp. "Yeah, but we still don't know what it is." Does Ant-Man said confusedly. Ahsoka also asked, "What exactly does that thing do?" "There's only one way to find out." The Wasp shrank again and flew towards the base, with Ant-Man following closely behind. Over at the Separatist base, the chubby Derd looked at his new weapon, and after installing it, he took out the holographic communication device to make a call. After a while, the holographic image of Count Dooku appeared in front of General Derd. "Count Dooku, our new weapon is finally complete and can be tested. Dold, better prove it's worth the time and expense." "Of course I can, sir." Derd turned around, waved to the cannon below, and said to the robot army, "Today is a great day for the Separatist Alliance. This new weapon will bring a quick and decisive victory to the Confederacy of Independent Systems on all battlefields. Because it can destroy all organic matter to the molecular level, while causing no damage to robots." All the robots cheered. Derd then said, "Now, I need a few volunteers." Suddenly, a large number of robots took a step back. 2B1 robots that didn't react stood there in a daze, not knowing that they had become test subjects. Derd looked at the two confused robots and said, "Very good. Now both of you go over there and stand there and wait for further instructions." Us. The two robots looked behind them and saw that the rest of the B1s had moved aside, clearing a path for them. "Go ahead," Derd encouraged, "for the glory of the Alliance of Independent Systems." The two robots hesitated for a moment and walked towards the designated location with difficulty. Ant-Man and the Wasp hovered near the cannon. They saw the cannon begin to spin, pointing directly in the direction where the two B1 robots were standing. Following Derd's order, a huge shell was launched into the air and eventually fell onto the grass, where the two robots were standing. After the impact, an explosion soon sounded, and the flames like napalm quickly spread throughout the venue. Not long after, the explosion submerged the two combat robots, but when the smoke cleared, the two robots were seen standing there unharmed, and the surrounding green grass and some small animals turned into ashes and scattered on the ground. Derd smiled with satisfaction, then turned to Dooku and said, "My lord, as you can see, the weapon worked exactly as it was designed. The plants and animals were destroyed, but the robots were unharmed." Count Dooku exclaimed, "Impressive, but I think it needs to be tested on a wider variety of organisms to ensure it is foolproof." Derd laughed evilly. "That's why I chose to conduct the test on the planet Meridian. The natives here have no resistance and will be perfect test subjects." Ant-Man and the Wasp are shocked by what they have just seen. The destructive power of this tank is extremely terrifying. They fly to the giant tree and tell everyone the news of the upcoming attack on the Separatist base. At the end of the scorched earth, the Lemon Man Wag 2 had sent the news to his friends via letter butterflies. Chapter 56, Sneak Attack on the Base. It was night, with only a few faint lights flickering in the valley. At this moment, the GD Knights, the clones, and the Avengers were hiding in the grass outside the Separatist base. Their plan for tonight was simple: destroy the Separatists' communications equipment, seize their shuttles and anything else they could take with them. If they could capture some new CI's weapons, that would be even better. They were divided into 3 groups. Anakin, Captain America, Bly and Rex were lying on the left side of the base. Arla and Ahsoka were on the right, and above, the Wasp and Ant-Man were staring closely at the base and monitoring from the air. After Wasp and Ant-Man determined that it was temporarily safe, Arla and Ahsoka began to approach the base, bypassing the searchlight of the robot base and reaching the wall of the base. At the same time, Anakin used the Force to make a rock next to a robot start to move irregularly to attract the robot's attention. The robot immediately lowered its head and saw the rock flying past it. What? It is. The other robots discovered that their companion was chasing a flying stone into the bushes, and they were also attracted by this incredible scene point in the bushes. Captain America, who had been lying in ambush for a long time, tripped the robot, and Anakin, holding a lightsaber, pierced its head with one blow. Arla and Ahsoka took the opportunity to climb up the wall, and relying on their natural agility and the physique enhanced by the Force, they jumped over the wall and entered the base. The Wasp and Ant-Man also landed in advance, quickly responded, and knocked the other robots to the ground. Although some robots had discovered the unknown attackers, it was too late, because the entire small strike force had already begun full-scale action. The shrunken Ant-Man and Wasp took the opportunity to destroy the searchlight, and the base suddenly became dark, buying more time for their actions. Captain America jumped out of the bunker and threw his shield at the remaining robots. The shield hit many robots at once, and the robots that were hit fell to the ground and died. The Wasp, Ant-Man, Arla, and Ahsoka were also destroying the remaining robots in the base. Ahsoka took the opportunity to open the door of the armory, took a quick look, and immediately said, "The cannon and ammunition are not here." Rex guessed, "The Separatists must have moved them to another place. That fat guy is quite cunning." Rex guessed while sticking out his tongue. "Now things are more difficult. I know, but we have to do everything we can to stop what is about to happen." Captain America said calmly, "The Separatists may have known about the invasion. We must leave as quickly as possible by spaceship and take away as many useful things as possible and blow up this base?" Wasp asked, pulling out several bombs. Seeing Captain America nod, the team quickly dispersed and planted bombs at various locations in the Separatist base point on the spaceship. Ant-Man helped Anakin prepare to start the spaceship and asked, "Anakin, after the mission is completed, can we keep this spaceship for ourselves?" Anakin was stunned for a moment, then asked in confusion, "Why do you want a Separatist ship? You know, if you want a ship, the Republic can give you one." "Yes, but that would make us, the Avengers, look like we are repaying a favor. However, the Separatist spaceship is considered a trophy, so the meaning is completely different." Skywalker studied the ship's control systems, then looked at Ant-Man and asked, "What do you and the Wasp mean by collectibles?" Ant-Man explained the details with a smile. It turned out that he and the Wasp had just shrunk and packed up everything they saw in the base and took them away. The base was full of enemy supplies and ammunition, piled up as high as a hill. After hearing this, Anakin's mouth was almost pulled to his ears, and he said excitedly, "Wow, I can't wait to see what it is." After a while, everyone was there, and Anakin immediately started the engine and drove the spaceship off the ground and flew into the night sky. When they were at a safe distance, the Wasp detonated the bomb point, then deafening explosions were heard from many parts of the Separatist base. Anakin said as he piloted the spaceship, "Contact Team Domino and tell them to prepare for battle. We have a tough battle to fight." The lemming people got up very early today, or rather, they basically did not sleep, because WAG 2 brought back bad news that the Separatists were coming again soon, and this time they wanted to experiment on the lemming people point. The leader of the Lemon was very conflicted at this time. What was worse was that someone saw a Separatist spaceship flying towards them. The clone team hiding in the dark to protect the Lemon immediately moved, quickly occupied the advantageous terrain, and pointed their guns at the slowly landing spaceship point. After the spaceship landed, when they saw the GD commander, clone captain and the Avengers coming out of the spaceship, they breathed a sigh of relief and quickly put down their guns. When the Lemon leader T-Wat saw that they were not Separatists, His conflicted mood instantly turned into anger. He walked forward aggressively and shouted angrily, "Why did you come back? Didn't I say that I didn't want to see you in the village again?" Wag2 tried to argue, but Ada stopped him and said to the lemon leader, "I'm sorry, leader, but we can't leave here." Then she raised her voice so that the other lemon could hear. "Listen to me. We have to take you to a safe place now. The Separatists are coming to destroy this village, and your lives will be in danger, so you must leave the village with us immediately." T-Wat stubbornly refused. "We will not leave our homeland. But if you stay here, you will be in danger. If it is my fate to die in your war with the Separatists, so be it." Ella was helpless against this stubborn old man. She exchanged a glance with Captain America, and the two of them immediately took action with everyone ready to protect the village from the impending attack. General Lokdurd was in a bad mood this morning. He was sleeping soundly on his private spaceship when his assistant rudely woke him up and told him a piece of news that was like a bolt from the blue. The base was bombed into ruins last night. Because the communications were cut off by Captain America, no news from the base could be transmitted out. Lokdurd shook the fat on his face and turned around angrily. He regretted not killing those lemon yesterday and had to keep them for the incinerator for experiment. Fortunately, he moved the incinerator to a hidden place before leaving the base. Otherwise he would have no way to explain to Count Dooku. Point in his opinion, there was no doubt that this matter was related to the lemming people who claimed to believe in peace. Even if they were not directly involved in the attack on the base, there must be something related to the destruction of his base hidden in their village. General Fatty angrily ordered everyone to gather and march towards the lemon village. Today, he not only wanted to test the incinerator, but also to take revenge on the lemon people. He wanted to sacrifice all their lives to the Meridian base. Chapter 57 The Battle Begins 1. When Lokdurd led the remaining robot army to the village, Arla, Captain America and others were moving the village's pod houses to form a protective barrier. Durd took out a telescope and looked at it, sneering, "Come on, those pod-like pod houses, can they defend against my robot army and AAT tanks? Not to mention the incinerator." When he saw the pod houses being moved to the front and stacked side by side, he was even more upset because the base was destroyed. He was surprisingly angry at the lemon people for overestimating their capabilities. But when he adjusted the focus to observe closer, he suddenly shouted, "GD, what are they doing here?" It turns out that all this is the work of the GD Knights. After seeing the roadblocks they built with huge pods, the stubborn old man T-Wat was also very unhappy and shouted, "Stop it. I didn't ask you to protect us." Captain America ignored him and pushed a large pod to the front with the help of Heavy Burden and Echo. He stopped and said to the two clones, "Echo, Heavy Burden, do we have mines?" Heavy Burden nodded and said, "Yes, sir." "Then you know what to do, right?" Heavy Burden nodded and led the Domino team to the roadblock in front of the village and quickly laid mines. At the same time, Arla and Anakin were talking to the angry lemon leader. "I'm really sorry to say this, but this battle is inevitable," Arla said simply and started pushing more pods for village defense. T-Wat said nothing, just muttered and walked away again. His son Wag looked at this scene and said to Ella apologetically, "I really appreciate everything you have done for us." Then he sighed and continued, "Although I also want to help, given the situation, I'm afraid." Ahsoka asked Wag curiously, "How could this happen?" Wag looked at Ahsoka and said, "My father is very stubborn and traditional. He has always believed that peace can be exchanged for peace. Our people are divided into two factions. Most of the young people have the same idea as me and think that we should take up arms to fight back. The rest follow my father. We have always grown up with the belief that peace can be exchanged for peace. Until recently, most of us have begun to question whether the beliefs we have held for generations are correct." Ahsoka was a little confused, while Ella had a blank expression. Captain America installed the last pod and turned around to see Bly and Rex beside him. Bly asked, "Sir, what is our next plan?" "The Separatists have at least 6 AAT tanks, one of which is the extremely lethal incinerator tank we have seen, and their number of robot warriors should not be underestimated." Captain America began to tell their plan. "Our first priority is to protect the village. When the tanks come into range, they will be eliminated immediately. Now, we will enter the position and prepare for battle. Bly and Rex looked for the best fighting position. Bly dispersed his 3 clone soldiers into the Domino team to prepare for a defensive battle. Standing behind the huge pod and observing for a while, Rex said, "The robots are holding their positions." Anakin said, "They are too far away to hit us, otherwise they would have done it long ago. If we can withstand the tank attack, we can lure them over, and our weapons will be able to work." Lucky glanced into the air and shouted, "Artillery shells are coming. Charge the shield quickly." Skywalker shouted. After the clones and the Avengers set up the shield generator, as the start button was pressed, energy columns shot out from the device, forming a huge barrier near the village. Everyone stood inside the shield and saw the shells fired by the incinerator fall in front of the shield, releasing scorching energy, spreading like wildfire, and not stopping until they hit the energy shield. Ant-Man was relieved when he saw this scene and said, "The shield really works, otherwise we would have been burned to ashes." Ella was not very optimistic. She said with a cold face, "But robots can pass through the energy shield." This made Hope very confused. She thought the energy shield could prevent everything from penetrating. "Wait, what? Why is this?" Ella explained. "All energy bombs will be deflected on the energy shield, but unfortunately anything other than energy bombs can pass directly through the energy shield." Bly ran over and reported, "General Sekira, all preparations in the village are ready." Captain America began to make arrangements. "The robots will sooner or later break through the energy shield. When they come through, we need to do 3 things. First, protect the charger. Second, protect the lemons. Third, on the basis of the first 2 points, effectively strike the robot army. If the charger is destroyed, the Separatists' A-80 tanks and incinerators will surely open fire again, which will deal a fatal blow to us and the lemons." Then, Captain America looked at Ant-Man and the Wasp and said, "Scott, Hope, you two go and destroy their heavy weapons, because only you two can complete this task without anyone noticing." Ant-Man and the Wasp nodded, shrank and flew towards the robot position. Captain America's voice came from behind. "Everyone else, hold the line and protect the chargers and villagers." "Got it, sir." The clone soldiers shouted in unison, and the GD nodded. Rex, who was responsible for observing the enemy's movements, shouted, "They are starting to advance." The clones all raised their weapons, with Captain America standing over them with his shield in hand and the GD Knights drawing their lightsabers ready for battle. As the droid army approached, Captain America was the first to break through the energy shield and engage in battle. The nearest droids were hit hard by the shields and then quickly bounced off. Many of the droids were severely dented or even beheaded. The GD Knights and clones followed closely behind and rushed forward as well. Anakin used the Force to drag a hapless V1 droid to his lightsaber and cut it in half like a hot knife through butter. Arla worked in coordination with Bly and her clone troopers, preparing for defense while covering the front with blasters. It wasn't long before the first wave of droid attacks was repelled. "That wasn't that hard," said Ahsoka. "That was only the first wave of attacks," Anakin reminded his apprentice. As expected, after a while, the sound of mechanical footsteps became louder and louder. Captain America shouted, "Everyone, prepare for the next attack." Anakin said, "Domino Squad, follow me." Bly's subordinate Lucky asked, "What about the 3 of us, sir?" Captain America said, "You 3 will be in a group with me. Rex, Bly, the 2 of you will stay with me, and Ahsoka to defend." Isla ordered. After everyone entered the designated position, Captain America looked at Anakin and the Domino Squad and confirmed with Changdan again, "Zandan, are those bombs buried?" Changdan smiled under his helmet, took out the remote control from his belt, pressed it, and the second attacking robot army was instantly drowned by a series of explosions. Rockdirt, who witnessed all this, was surprisingly angry that his robot army had made no progress in the second attack. Dirt gritted his teeth, looked at the remaining robot troops, and shouted, "Tanks, fire." Captain America was fighting with Flash, Cameron, Lucky and the remaining robots. Suddenly, Flash heard a whistling sound, looked up at the sky, and shouted, "The shells are coming." Anakin shouted, asking everyone to retreat back into the energy shield. The 2 groups began to retreat quickly, and when they were about to pass through the energy shield, Captain America saw one of the tank shells falling in the direction of the clones in front of him. Without hesitation, he accumulated strength, sprinted forward at an extremely fast speed, and pushed the 3 clones into the shield with his shield. Arla and Ahsoka saw this scene, their eyes widened, and they watched the shells fall directly on Captain America. "Captain!" Both of them shouted in horror. Just as Captain America raised his shield above his head for protection, the shell hit the shield and a loud explosion sounded. A few seconds later, the smoke dissipated, and most of Captain America's body was covered with traces of burns and dirt, but he was still alive. The Jedi Knights and clone officers were stunned by this incredible scene. They had seen with their own eyes how destructive the incinerator was, and they all stared at Captain America in a daze, watching him wipe the stains on his shield. Rex was the first to come back to his senses and murmured, "I never knew his shield could withstand the blow of the incinerator." Captain America turned around and said, "There are many things you don't know." Bly was also in extreme shock, and murmured, "I have to make such a cool shield, too." Captain America smiled and said, "Then I wish you good luck, and try to find it as soon as possible." Everyone laughed. This feeling of surviving a disaster was really worth everyone's happiness, because Captain America and even the Avengers had unknowingly become close comrades in arms of all of them. Chapter 58 The Trade Federation Governor is captured. The Wasp and Ant-Man quickly flew through the air toward the Separatist position, landing on the Separatists' new weapon in the blink of an eye, and crept into the main panel of the console. Once inside, the shrunken duo began to unplug wires and destroy some key components. Locterd's assistant noticed that the indicator light on the console was off. Out of curiosity, he pressed a few buttons, but there was no response. He immediately set about repairing it, and as expected, he was electrocuted when he pried open the panel of the console. He fell backwards and fell straight to the ground, unconscious. Locterd saw his assistant lying on the ground and smoking, and was stunned. "What's going on?" At this time, Ant-Man and the Wasp had already flown into the air. "Are the bombs ready? As long as we reach a safe distance, we can enjoy a fireworks show." Hope responded. Ant-Man began to count down, and as the countdown ended, he pressed the mini remote control in his hand. Boom. The tank next to Dud exploded, and the fat general was dizzy. He shouted in horror, "What happened?" "One of our tanks exploded." A robot pointed at the tank that was emitting thick smoke. Dud was so angry at this idiotic answer that he shouted angrily, "I know. What I want to ask is what happened?" Not long after, the robot saw something quickly drying the blood on the general's face, and then he realized that it was the explosion of the tank that detonated the napalm bomb, and flames gushed out. Dud was thrown out violently, and his fat body hit the tank and fell heavily to the ground. Dud screamed and cried like a wounded child, because the pain caused by the burning flames on his body was unimaginable. He repeatedly swung his arms and hit them on the ground, hoping to put out the flames. One of the surviving robots quickly ran over and helped their fat general. He hurriedly stepped on the flames on the general's arm with his feet. Unexpectedly, Dud's arm, which was already burned and fragile, was directly broken off by the robot stepping and turned into a pile of arm-shaped ashes. Locterd screamed in pain while holding the wound on his broken limb. Cough cough. Dud opened his eyes carefully and saw Captain America, Anakin Skywalker, Ant-Man, Wasp, Arla Sekira, Ahsoka Tano, Bly and Rex standing beside him. Knowing that the situation was hopeless, he begged, "Can you spare my life?" The answer he got was a heavy punch on the face, and then he fainted. The clones are sending messages to the outside world, hoping that the nearby Republic fleet can receive their signals. Wasp and Ant-Man are sitting together, hugging each other, looking at the endless grasslands of Meriden. At the same time, Captain America, Arla, Anakin and Ahsoka discuss their current situation. Anakin said, "Based on the current situation, this battle is not as bad as I thought. There are almost no casualties." Bly looked at the clone warriors who were sending messages and sighed, "I hope all missions can be like this." "I feel the same, Bly," Ayla said. "But we all know that this is unlikely. There will be sacrifices in war." Bly's voice dropped. Anakin smiled and said, "Hey, cheer up. This is a rare moment. We didn't lose anyone." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Wag 2. Wag's face was filled with a bright smile, and he said, Thank you again for your help. Many of us Lumen are ready to intervene in this war that has swept the entire galaxy. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I wouldn't have the opportunity to stand here and talk to you now." Then Wag noticed his father walking towards them. Wag's eyes flickered and said, "Oh, father, I'm just expressing my gratitude to the Jedi Knights and their friends." Tewatka looked at everyone, sighed softly and said, "Maybe it's a good thing to get your help." Then the little old man looked deeply at his son and walked away with a hunched body. A roar came from the sky and everyone looked up. In the sky, 3 air gunships slowly landed. The Avengers, Jedi Knights and clones said goodbye to the Lumen, boarded the gunships, and left the planet Meridian. When the Wasp stepped into Anakin's Hunter-class Star Destroyer, Falcon, and War Machine were overjoyed. Now only Black Widow, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were left, but according to the current situation, these 3 must also be on a planet in the Milky Way. I believe they will meet again soon. Admiral Yularen came over and said to Anakin, "General Skywalker, there is a holographic communication from the Senate and the Jedi Council." Anakin and the Avengers followed Yularen to the communication room, and the holographic projections of Speaker Palpatine, Master Yoda, Obi-Wan, Windu, Plo Koon, Senator Padme and Jar Jar Binks appeared in front of them. "Jedi Master, Captain Rogers, it is gratifying to see that you all returned to us alive," Palpatine said with a happy smile. Then his gaze rested on the Wasp and he asked politely, "Who is this beautiful lady?" Seeing that everyone's eyes were on her, the Wasp stood up and said, "Hello, my name is Hope Van Dyne, codenamed Wasp in the Avengers." Palpatine smiled and said, "Congratulations, you have found another lost teammate." Anakin asked Obi-Wan, "What happened?" Obi-Wan turned his gaze to Padme, who smiled and said, "Thanks to the efforts of Jedi Luminara, Commander Gree, and Senator Binks, we have captured the governor of the Trade Federation, Newt Gunray." "Really?" Palpatine showed a surprised expression, turned his gaze away from the Wasp, and said excitedly, "Senator Amidala, you have brought good news to everyone." Mace Windu said with a firm face, "With Newt Gunray Thunder is arrested, we can take further measures to end the war as soon as possible." Anakin nodded, saying, "Indeed, it seems that you are busy next." Angin is not a matter of interrogation. Love, instantly wanting to understand what is going on, and trying to laugh hard. It is nothing more than 2 Jedi warriors who led their own cloned legions, and couldn't get a group of pirates. Ahsoka was obviously not concerned about this at this time. She said, "Masters, please forgive me for being blunt. My master has just been injured, and still needs time to recover." Padme looked at her husband Anakin, and found that what Ahsoka said was true. Anakin was indeed injured. She swallowed back the words of concern that were about to come to her lips, but her concerned eyes never left Anakin. As if sensing something, Anakin looked at Padme and gave his wife a comforting smile. Abano nodded and said, "You have participated in too many battles recently. I think you and the Avengers really need a rest." Windu asked, "But what about Newt Gunray? We must transfer him to a safe place, otherwise it will be a waste of time. Even if Dooku sends enough robot troops, we will not only let Newt Gunray slip away from under our noses, but may also cause heavy losses." Anakin pondered for a while and said, "I believe Ahsoka is ready to take over my position. She can complete this mission excellently." Everyone was shocked, including Ahsoka herself. Abano asked, "Anakin, are you sure?" Anakin said with certainty, "I'm very sure. If it wasn't her this time, I would definitely not be standing in front of you alive now." Captain America stepped forward and said, "If it's not too much trouble, the Avengers can send someone to help complete this transfer mission." The Wasp and Ant-Man had just reunited, and they were definitely reluctant to separate now. War Machine took the initiative and said, "I'm willing to participate in this mission." War Machine also knew what Captain America meant. Helping was one thing, and the other was going out to find the other 3. Palpatine said with a smile, "Then it has been happily decided. Ahsoka Tano and the Avengers War Machine will be responsible for bringing Newt Gunray back." Chapter 59, Escorting Newt Gunray. Before leaving, Ahsoka said to Captain America solemnly, "Don't worry, Captain Rogers, I will make sure nothing happens to Colonel Rhodes." Captain America smiled and nodded. War Machine was amused by the serious expression of the little girl and asked jokingly, "Are you sure you are protecting me instead of me protecting you?" Ahsoka rolled her eyes at War Machine and turned around proudly to board the large gunship. The two are currently on their way to the frigate where Nute Gunray is imprisoned. Their escort mission is waiting for them ahead. So in addition to the two of us, there are 2 other GD Knights to complete this escort mission with us? Ahsoka nodded. Yeah. We can't take risks on this matter. It seems that this guy must be an important person. He actually needs 3 GD Knights and an Avenger to carry out this small escort mission. War Machine said. Ahsoka nodded again. If the security work is weak, we will be unable to react in time when encountering sim emergencies. Nute Gunray is one of the core leaders of the Federation of Independent Systems and a financial supporter of the mass production of the robot army. War Machine pondered for a moment and said, "So, the Galactic Republic now has a CIs, and they will definitely find a way to rescue the people." Ahsoka said solemnly, "It is very possible. The CIs will definitely not watch us bring Nute Gunray back to Coruscant smoothly. Then who are the other 2 GD Knights escorting with us?" Just as War Machine asked this question, the hatch of the gunship opened, and 2 women with alien looks appeared outside the hatch. They had yellow-green skin and some tattoos on their faces that War Machine could not understand. The taller of the 2 women smiled and said, "Hello, Ahsoka. If I remember correctly, you must be Colonel James Rhodes." War Machine politely responded, "Yes, I have seen you before, but I didn't know your name." The GD Master just smiled and then said, "I'm Lumina Arunduli, and she is my apprentice Berisophy. It's nice to meet you, Colonel Rhodes, Ahsoka." Berisophy said with a pleasant smile. At this time, a clone commander came over. "General Luminara, the frigate is ready and can set off at any time." Luminara nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, "Okay, Jerry, we will go to see Nute Gunray first and then continue to Coruscant." Several people followed Luminara to the frigate's cell. The 2 GD apprentices walked aside and chatted with each other. Luminara and Jerry talked to War Machine. Jerry said politely, "Colonel Rhodes, please forgive my intrusion. I really want to ask some questions." "What? Is the leader of your Avengers team really led by Captain Steve Rogers?" Jerry asked. War Machine nodded. "Yes. I don't mean to offend you. So why would the captain lead the colonel?" Jerry asked puzzledly. Luminara also joined in. "I'm curious about this, too." War Machine pondered for a moment. To be honest, he had never thought about this question before, and then said, "It's a long story, but in short, the reason why Captain Rogers is the captain is because he is the best candidate for the captain. Of course, anyone can be the captain. My best friend on Earth can do it. Even Thor can do it. But in the entire team, everyone will agree that Captain Rogers is the best candidate for the captain. There is no doubt about it." Commander Jerry was silent, thinking about these words, because he was not sure if he understood them correctly. But Luminara was more interested in what War Machine said, and at the same time, more interested in Captain America. What kind of personality charm would make a captain become the leader of an excellent team? Therefore, the merit is a great credit to him for leading the team. Luminara speculated. As they stood in front of the cell, War Machine couldn't help but express his opinion. "This is the guy we need to escort back with all our forces. It feels like a gust of wind can blow his ass upside down." Commander Gree and several other clones nearby burst into laughter when they heard such a vulgar and funny description of Nute Gunray. Ahsoka and Beris were also stunned by War Machine's words. Luminara raised the corners of her mouth slightly, thinking that this Avenger was quite interesting. And Nute Gunray felt insulted and glared at War Machine. "Although he may not be good looking, Colonel, he is indeed an important figure in the Alliance of Independent Systems. He will play a key role in ending this war as soon as possible." Luminara said with a smile. "Then we just need him to confess honestly. Is there any difference between confessing here and taking him back to Coruscant to confess?" War Machine asked. "That's right, but before he confesses, we must first transfer him to a safe enough place, because we are now facing an attack from Dooku at any time, and Dooku is likely to send an army of robots to rescue him." War Machine was very disapproving of this weak-looking guy, and glared back at Nute Gunray fiercely, because he saw this frail guy actually glaring at him. After hearing what Luminara said, War Machine pondered for a while, thought of a possibility, and said to himself, or maybe only one person will be sent. Unfortunately, his voice was too small, and Luminara and the others did not hear it. Of course, Newt Gunray was not in a good mood, because he was taken out of the cell, and was to be taken to the control room of the frigate. There were clones all around him. War Machine followed behind, and the GD trio led the way in front. War Machine continued to observe Newt Gunray, looking at this alien bad guy curiously, because he found that this guy seemed to be looking for a way to escape. But under the current circumstances, War Machine could only think of one way to escape, which was bribery. Newt Gunray found the object of the bribe, and whispered to the clone commander Jerry beside him, "You know my identity. I'm the governor of the trade union. I'm a very wealthy man, and I have always been generous to my own people." However, Gree did not give the response Newt Gunray wanted, as he clearly showed his contempt and disgust for the Separatists. Gree raised a pair of handcuffs and shook them, tauntingly saying, "This is a very tempting offer, Governor. But unfortunately, it won't work for me." At the same time, Luminara had contacted a Hunter-class Star Destroyer to assist them in escorting Newt Gunray to Coruscant. Chapter 60, Bounty Hunter Dirge. Count Dooku stood on the bridge of the Separatist Alliance's Providence-class Star Dreadnought, waiting for Darth Sidious's next instructions regarding the capture of Newt Gunray. Just as he was wondering how Sidious would plan to rescue Newt Gunray, his holographic projection appeared in front of him. Dooku quickly lowered his head and knelt down, asking respectfully, "Master, what do you want me to do? Do I even need to ask? Of course it's about Gunray." Count Dooku nodded and said, "The Republic has captured Governor Newt Gunray. Master, what do you want me to do?" Sidious said, "Gunray won't last long under the Jedi's interrogation. He has a weak will. If his mouth is pried open, we will be very passive, which will be a devastating blow to our war." Dooku knew Sidious's viciousness, and had guessed that he would do this. He said respectfully, "I understand. I will send Ventress to find a way to board the GD frigate responsible for escorting Newt Gunray. If the rescue fails, the governor will shut his mouth forever." Sidious muttered Ventress's name, and then said, "If I remember correctly, Ventress participated in the operation on Naboo. Are you going to let someone who has failed once perform a more difficult and more important mission? She is a talented and excellent assassin. She will definitely complete this mission excellently," Dooku said firmly. Sidious put on an unquestionable attitude, shook his head and said, "No matter what, this mission must not fail. If it were only GD knights and clones, perhaps I would agree with your suggestion, but this time, the GD have sent other people to carry out the escort mission. Master? In addition to the 3 GD, there is also an Avenger who escorted Newt Gunray to Coruscant this time. There is no doubt that this Avenger will cause a lot of trouble to your assassin apprentice. Wasn't it like this on Naboo?" When Dooku heard Sidious say that the Avengers were involved in this mission, he didn't dare to make any solemn promises. After all, Ventress had just been beaten and fled by several Avengers during the operation on Naboo. So, he asked cautiously, "So who will this Avenger be?" A picture of War Machine appeared next to Sidious's projection, and then Sidious said in a complicated tone, "Colonel James Rhodes, known as War Machine and the Avengers. From the information we have now, this person is definitely a powerful fighting force. His armor is simply an arsenal that accommodates various advanced weapons, and his own combat effectiveness should not be underestimated. He is a veritable war machine." Sidious glanced at the kneeling Dooku, and then said, "He, like everyone else in this growing team of heroes, cannot be taken lightly. Therefore, in order for this mission to be 100% successful, Ventress must not do it alone." Dooku quickly thought about the mission and Sidious' words, then looked up and said, "Master, maybe there is someone who can make this operation seem fair." Sidious looked at Dooku and motioned for him to continue. Dooku continued, "My people recently discovered an ancient warrior who is proficient in fighting many different kinds of enemies, including the GD Knights." Dooku explained, "He is just like the Avenger you mentioned, called War Machine. In addition to his own powerful combat power, he is also a mobile arsenal. In addition, he has spent quite a long time and has incomparable rich combat experience." "Oh. Do you have confidence in this ancient warrior?" "Absolutely confident, my master," Dooku said. Usually, Sidious's suspicious character would prompt him to question his apprentice, but this time, Sidious nodded and agreed to Dooku's plan after a period of silence. When Asajj Ventress arrived on the bridge, Dooku and Sidious holographic communication had ended. Dooku was standing alone on the bridge, not knowing what he was thinking. Ventress greeted Dooku, "Master." Dooku turned around, then glared at Ventress fiercely, and then said, "Come with me, there is something you need to do, but before that, I must explain it to you clearly." Ventress followed Count Dooku down from the bridge. Dooku said, "There is no room for error in this mission. It must be completed. If this mission fails again, not only you, but also I will not be able to have an easy time." Ventress asked, "Master, what is the difficulty of this mission?" Dooku glanced at Ventress and said lightly, "Newt Gunray has been captured by the Republic, and is now being escorted to Coruscant for interrogation. Your mission is to rescue him. Even if you can't rescue him, it's okay, but you must not let him speak. Do you understand?" Ventress nodded. Dooku continued, "There are 3 Jedi in charge of the escort mission this time, and 1 person from the Avengers also participated in this escort mission. Although you have never met him, you have fought with 3 people from the Avengers on Naboo, and you are clear about their combat effectiveness, so this time I will send another person to carry out this mission with you. Master, last time on Naboo, I was just careless and didn't adapt to their fighting style." Ventress argued quickly, "On this point, I believe what you said, so that's why you are not sent alone this time." Dooku nodded and said. Ventress was stunned for a moment, then asked in disbelief, as if she had been greatly insulted, "What?" However, Dooku was unmoved, and just said, "You heard what I said, do you need me to repeat it again?" Ventress was silent. The two soon stood in front of a door, and when the door opened, Ventress saw an unusually large body wrapped in dented impact-resistant armor. He stood alone in the room, exuding an endless aura of killing, as if he was a crazy killing machine. Dooku said to Ventress, "Now, let me introduce you to your new comrade." The figure began to walk towards her with powerful steps, and every footstep seemed to make the room shake a little. Ventress raised her neck and frowned at the new comrade, noticing his size and badly worn armor, and asked in disbelief, "Bounty hunter? He is much older than any bounty hunter alive today, and he has killed more Jedi than anyone else, including you and Grievous." Hearing this, Ventress looked at this special being with a slightly awed look, and was no longer so resistant to adding another person to the mission with her. She asked curiously, "Does he have a name?" Bounty Hunter Dirge. Chapter 61 Bounty Hunters and War Machines 1. In space, the Serenity is flying. Inside the spaceship, Clone Commander Gree and Captain Arges of the Senate Commando on board are standing outside the door of the interrogation room, where 3 Jedi Knights and War Machine are interrogating Newt Gunray. Luminara said, "Governor, your expression betrays you. I can feel that you are worried about suffering heavy losses in this war." Newt Gunray was a little nervous and retorted, I don't know what you are talking about." War Machine looked at Newt Gunray and said, "Let me guess, your wealth, power, and you know very well that the reason why your allies rely on you is entirely because of the wealth in your hands, not because of you, a weak guy." Gunray suddenly became emotional. "These are just your own whimsical guesses. In all this, I'm just an innocent pawn." War Machine rolled his eyes disdainfully and said meaningfully, "Right, Beresophy pointed out wisely, if you are a pawn, then you have told us how much insignificant information you may have, instead of letting such a rare security team escort you back to Coruscant. So Governor, who are you protecting?" Gunray said weakly, "No one, I know nothing." Ahsoka's patience is obviously similar to her master's. She slapped her hand on the table and shouted angrily, "I've had enough of your low-level lies." Suddenly taking out the lightsaber and crossing Gunray's neck, "Tell us what we want to know, or I will make you bleed like a river." Newt Gunray gasped and fell off the chair. Before he could continue the interrogation, the ship began to shake violently, and explosions were heard in the distance. The 4 came out of the interrogation room, only to see Commander Jerry contacting the bridge, reporting the situation. "What's going on outside?" On the bridge of the Serenity, the commanding clone officer used the control panel to stand up, while the squadron of vulture robots bombarded the ship. "There's a group of robots attacking, sir." Meanwhile, outside the Serenity, vulture robots were constantly harassing the ship to draw firepower and clear a path for the landing craft. 6 landing craft successfully entered the Serenity's main hangar, and the super battle robots immediately landed. Gree heard the situation reported from the bridge and immediately issued an order to prepare the ship's defense. Dozens of clones picked up their weapons and ran to the hangar, some of whom were already fighting the robots. They used the boxes scattered around the hangar as cover, while firing at more and more super battle robots. Because of their numerical advantage, they temporarily suppressed the firepower of the super robots, but soon, as more super robots joined the battle, the clone soldiers were clearly at a disadvantage. Several super robots fired laser cannons at the clones hiding behind the boxes. A clone shouted loudly, "Avoid!" Only a few clones were lucky enough to react in time, and a large group of clones were either directly swallowed by the laser cannon, or blown away by its shockwave. The captain of the clones contacted Jerry again. "Commander Jerry, we need reinforcement, robots." Boom. The whole hangar shook instantly, and various collision sounds echoed in the hangar. Many clones temporarily stopped firing, and looked in the direction of the loud noise. A huge armored man stood there with his knees bent, and the metal floor sank. When it stood up and stared at the surroundings, it exuded a strong aura of shock. After discovering the clone, the creature suddenly laughed creepily, and bent its fingers and walked forward. The huge armored man roared, "Finally back." The clones couldn't help but shudder, and the explosive power and speed of this big man turned into fear. It flew forward and instantly grabbed the necks of 2 clones, and smashed them to the ground with force, and they died. The captain of the clones roared, "Fire." All the clones turned their guns, and began to attack the armored creature with all their strength, but to their shock, the blaster bombs bounced off him like a tickle, and the huge creature stood there and smiled. The huge creature shouted excitedly, "Mandalorian clones, everything you do is in vain. You are just trying to prolong your inevitable death." He ran forward, jumped into the air, and landed in the middle of a group of clones. He grabbed a clone's arm and threw the poor clone into the crowd of clones like a cannonball. His attack was not over yet. It kicked away several more clones, and after each attack, the clone's armor and bones made a chilling sound. "Sir, we need reinforcement now. There are other things here besides beta robots, and we can't hold on any longer." The clone captain shouted. "They need help. They need help now." War Machine hurried to the hangar. Luminara also said seriously, "He's right, Jerry, let's go to the hangar too." Ahsoka and Barriss followed, and Luminara said to the two, "You and Barriss stay here to watch Gunray. I guess everything in the hangar is to divert our attention." At the same time, War Machine was flying quickly in the corridor. Along the way, he defeated several squadrons of super battle robots, relieving the pressure on the clones who were going to the hangar to reinforce. In the hangar, this beast-like creature slaughtered the clone soldiers one by one. A clone soldier shouted angrily, "Who are you?" The beast-like man stopped attacking and said, "Who am I? I'm the nightmare of the Mandalorians. Now it's time for the whole galaxy to remember my name. My name is Dirge." Just as Dirge was about to end the life of this poor clone, he was suddenly grabbed by a man who was also fully armed, lifted him up high, threw him against a wall, and then aimed his arm machine gun at Dirge. Dutch raised his arms to defend himself. He wanted to laugh at this guy who didn't know what he was capable of, but when he felt a few bullets pierce his armor, his face changed, and he moved quickly, but War Machine followed closely. Dutch looked at the small holes in the armor and whispered, "Interesting." Then he rushed forward. War Machine took out a cane and flew towards the charging bounty hunter. The bounty hunter stretched out his arms, and his arms were surrounded by red energy balls. The two fought quickly, and War Machine hit Dutch's arms, and each blow sent a small electric shock, which made the bounty hunter feel uneasy. He took a quick step back and looked at War Machine and said, "Maybe I will tear you out of the armor and put my name on it." War Machine kindly reminded him, "Sorry, this armor is only for me." Dutch roared and threw War Machine out with great force. At the same time, he quickly stepped forward and punched War Machine in the chest, knocking him out, hitting him hard on a gunship, and then falling to the ground. Seeing this, several clone soldiers who were fighting the B-2 robot ran over and shouted, "Colonel, are you okay?" War Machine groaned in pain and stood up with difficulty. He saw that Dirge, who had good speed, strength and combat experience, had disappeared. He endured the pain and said, "Block this ship. Everyone stay away from the bounty hunter, otherwise he will kill you easily." "But, sir, what if he goes to save the prisoner?" one of the clones asked. War Machine also thought of this and said, "Tell General Luminara that there is an extremely dangerous person on the ship now. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 62 Bounty Hunters and War Machines 2. During the time when Dirge and War Machine were fighting, Luminara had been working with Commander Gree and a group of clone troopers to drive away the super battle droids that had managed to penetrate the Serenity. After destroying the last battle droid, Luminara received a call from War Machine. War Machine said solemnly, "Luminara, we have a very dangerous person on board." "What? Colonel Rhodes?" Luminara asked when she heard his nervous breathing. War Machine told him seriously, "There is a special warrior in the Separatist army. He is a real killer. His name is Dirge. We just fought in the hangar. He is extremely dangerous. If you meet him, you must not take it lightly, and no one who sees him should fight him alone." Luminara quickly said to Commander Gree, "Gree, notify all clones and commandos to remain on full alert. No matter who this Dirge is, tell them not to confront him head on, and try to delay him and prevent him from getting close to Gunray." "General Luminara, I just received news that the military camp was attacked," one of the clones reported anxiously. "Military camp?" Commander Jerry repeated, and then said, "That's far from the interrogation room, where Newt Gunray is imprisoned." Luminara thought for a while, and said to herself, "It seems that the purpose of this Dirge is not to rescue Gunray." Then she said to the communicator, "Colonel Rhodes, the Dirge you mentioned, is now in the barracks. I'll go there right away. I'll meet you there." Luminara said. The barracks was in chaos at the moment. Every clone nearby opened fire at the rampant bounty hunter, while the bounty hunter Dirge slaughtered the clones mercilessly. Dirge grabbed a clone and used him as a meat shield. Several clones' blaster shells were all shot at the clone in front of Dirge. He laughed contemptuously and said, "Low-level clones." Then he threw the body aside. Suddenly, Dutch was hit by a series of macro missiles, which instantly engulfed him in flames, but he walked out of the flames intact, except that his already worn out armor was even more torn, and it seemed that these missiles had no harm to him. He looked at War Machine and sneered, "Come back for more beatings." War Machine, not to be outdone, also started to talk nonsense, hoping to anger the bounty hunter. "I wonder who's running away from our battle like a coward." Dutch roared excitedly, "Fool, I've never seen anyone as stupid as you." Instead of taking the opportunity to escape, he rushed to die. War Machine said nothing more, but activated the weapons on the armor. Various cluster guns, grenades, missiles, electromagnetic pulses, lasers, etc. were all pointed at Dutch. Dutch did not show any fear when he saw this armor, which could be called a small arsenal. Instead, he became more excited. He looked at War Machine's armor with interest, and then laughed wildly, hunched over, ready to go, in a posture similar to a predator ready to pounce on its prey. He said dully, "Interesting. Let's see if you can satisfy my appetite." Just as Dutch was speeding forward, War Machine unleashed an incendiary round, but the sensors showed that the bounty hunter had not slowed down and would attack him in a few seconds. War Machine retracted his weapon into his armor and swung his staff again, smashing his melee weapon into Dutch's head. Dutch was knocked aside due to the enhanced strength of his armor, but he quickly recovered by rolling to unload the force and unexpectedly shot his arm at War Machine, only to see his arm continue to extend and quickly wrap around War Machine's arm. War Machine gritted his teeth and felt a strong pull that seemed to tear his arm off. He glanced and saw that it was a mass of what looked like nerves and muscles. The two stubborn combatants brought the fight to a brief stalemate until Dirge's arm was transformed by a barrage of blaster bolts, and then severed by the green lightsaber of GD Luminara. "Good timing, Luminara," said War Machine as he swung his arm to rip Dirge's severed arm off. Luminara raised her lightsaber high in the air, pointing it in Dirge's direction, and giving him a defiant glare. I'll tell you once, bounty hunter, surrender now, and you can't beat us. But Dutch did not back down, because of a broken arm, nor was he scared by Luminara's words. He looked at the two of them calmly, only to see that his broken arm had grown out very quickly. War Machine and Luminara were both startled and looked at the regrown arm in shock. Dutch looked at Luminara and said expectantly, "It's been a while since I fought a Jedi Knight, and I'm glad I accepted the Sith Lord's offer." Sith Lord? Luminara knew who Dutch was referring to, not wanting this monster to attack again and kill more of his men. Grey ordered, "Soldiers, take him down." "No." War Machine shouted loudly, but it was too late. All the clones began to fire at Dirge, but Dirge's counterattack soon killed more clones. Seeing so many clone soldiers making unnecessary sacrifices, War Machine quickly joined the battle, followed by Luminara. Dirge was like a hurricane of death, constantly killing the clones, and then faced Luminara and War Machine directly. Dirge attacked the two mercilessly. Luminara fought at a long distance, while War Machine chose to fight at close range. Dirge beat War Machine back in the direction of Luminara, then rushed towards the clones, and began to reap their lives while saying, "Count Dooku told me about your ancestor. He should have been the best warrior in the galaxy." Dutch punched a clone in the head, breaking the clone's neck instantly, then quickly took out his blaster and fired at several clones who tried to sneak up on him, then walked towards Jerry and said, "For me, I believe Jango Fett is lucky. I took a nap for 60 years, and now I just need to kill all his disappointing clones as compensation." "You can't do it." Luminara's voice came from the side. Dutch suddenly felt an invisible force knocking him away. Luminara stood next to her adjutant and asked, "Jerry, are you okay?" War Machine took advantage of the break to engage in a small wrestling match with the now recovered Dutch. He grabbed the larger Dutch's wrist and tried to wrestle him to the ground, but the bounty hunter was stronger and raised his arms to lift the weak War Machine up. Thinking quickly, War Machine then used the power of his thrusters to kick Dutch in the chest with both feet. The energy from the thrusters combined with his own strength to pierce Dutch's armor. Luminara watched Dutch's charred skin heal quickly and muttered in disbelief, "Jedi." "General?" Jerry said puzzledly. Dutch smiled sarcastically and said, "So you know my race." Luminara pointed her lightsaber at Dutch and said, "Your race is indeed rare. To be honest, I thought you were all dead." "Oh, we are still alive. And I'm here to kill all of you," Dutch said. His whole body began to swell, and he stretched out two extendable arms to War Machine and Luminara, who both quickly stepped aside. "Jerry, keep your distance. It's obvious that this bastard wants to kill you clones," War Machine shouted. Luminara moved forward, raised her lightsaber, and swung it hard, repelling Dirge's extended arm, and then asked, "Bounty hunter, why are you doing this? Are you here to rescue the prisoners?" "Prisoners?" Dirge laughed wildly. "I'm not here for that fool. That responsibility belongs to someone else." War Machine repeated loudly, "Someone else." Luminara also said in horror, "Ahsoka, Barriss, Lieutenant Jerry, go to the interrogation room now. Take all the clones with you." "Roger that, sir." Jerry and the other clones shouted and quickly ran out of the barracks. "Where are you going?" Dirge roared angrily, stretching out his arm to intercept the retreating clones. War Machine's wrist-mounted assault rifle instantly shot through Dirge's extended arm. Dirge let out a painful roar, turned around and stared at War Machine fiercely. War Machine shrugged nonchalantly and said, "Freak, your opponent is me." Luminara also stood beside him. Dirge snorted, then began to laugh crazily again. "Well, then I can only fulfill your wish, kill you too, and then go kill those Ant-like clones." War Machine knew that Ahsoka and the others might need help now, turned to Luminara and said firmly, "You go to the interrogation room too. Ahsoka and Barriss need you." Luminara's face was full of entanglement, and he looked at War Machine worriedly and said, "Colonel Rhodes, I can't leave." War Machine comforted, "Not leaving. You just temporarily retreat to another place to ensure the completion of this mission." "But Dirge," War Machine interrupted seriously, "Luminara, your apprentice and Ahsoka need you more than I do now." Then his tone softened and he said, "Believe me, I'll be fine here." Luminara didn't have time to speak because Dirge launched another attack. War Machine hugged Luminara and flew out of Dirge's attack range, landing at the exit of the barracks. He gently pushed Luminara out. Go, now. Can you handle him by yourself? Luminara asked with concern. War Machine looked at Luminara and said, maybe, at least you can hold on for a while. But now, the two Jedi apprentices need you more than I do. Luminara would rather stay, but reason told her that she should go to the interrogation room immediately. She heard the sound of metal rubbing against each other, turned around, and saw Dirge walking out of the metal hole he had just crashed through. Biting her lip, Luminara shook her head and took one last look at War Machine, who was looking directly at the bounty hunter. She turned and ran, while War Machine jumped into the air and faced the oncoming fierce attack again. Chapter 63 Bounty Hunters and War Machines 3. Meanwhile, Beresophy and Ahsoka Tano are doing everything they can to stop the assassin Asajj Ventress. All they could do was stand there and listen to the clone troopers' cries for help and screams as Dirge rampaged through the ship, slaughtering them. Ahsoka was very upset because she wanted to go out and assist the clone troopers, but Beres stopped her and reminded them of their duties here. Ventress quickly knocked out several commandos and Argers, while others reluctantly assisted the two young GD. However, blocking Ventress proved difficult, as she used the tight space of the hallway to her advantage, more than capable of blocking everyone. Ahsoka and Beres fought fiercely with Ventress, who easily defeated the two Jedi apprentices with her crimson lightsaber, and laughed contemptuously, taunting, when I kill you too, maybe I'll give your heads to your master. Ahsoka responded verbally, everyone can brag, you bold witch. I'm surprised Dooku still keeps you around after all the times you've failed. This insult that hit home made Ventress furious. She gritted her teeth and prepared to launch a more severe attack. However, before she could act, she saw a large number of clone soldiers coming out of the elevator, all of their guns pointed at her. Ventress quickly considered whether she could fight, and after a long period of deliberation, she used her natural powerful force skills to knock the two Jedi apprentices and a group of clone soldiers away, and then quickly escaped in the chaos. Ahsoka tried to chase after him, but Beres quickly grabbed her arm. No, Ahsoka, we can't chase after him. This could be a trap, Beres said, pulling her companion Ahsoka back. But we can get her back, Ahsoka countered. This ship is now under attack by the Separatists, and they will take any opportunity to achieve their goal of rescuing Newt Gunray. Beres's calm analysis made Ahsoka pause point thinking about it. She knew that Beres was right. The two suddenly became nervous when they saw the elevator, thinking that Ventress had come back to kill them, or that other Separatists had come again. When the elevator stopped, Luminara came out to breathed a sigh of relief, and Beres greeted her master. Luminara. Beres, Ahsoka. Luminara was relieved to see the two standing at the elevator in trance intact. Ahsoka asked, where's Colonel Rhodes? Luminara's eyes flashed with worry as she replied, he's fighting Ventress's partner. Ahsoka's eyes widened in horror. You mean he was facing that crazy enemy, the douche who killed so many of our soldiers alone? Luminara nodded. He was more concerned about the safety of both of you than his own, so he insisted that I come to help you. When he heard Dutch say there was another intruder, Ahsoka walked past Luminara as she spoke, I'm going to help him. But Luminara stopped her by holding her shoulders and said sternly, Ahsoka, you can't go. This bounty hunter named Dirge is more powerful than any enemy you have ever encountered. I could clearly feel this when Colonel Rhodes and I were fighting him together. If you go, you will not be helping Colonel Rhodes, but hindering him. Ahsoka retorted vehemently, we can't let him fight alone. Luminara looked at the young Jedi apprentice and said solemnly, we will not let him fight alone. I'm relieved to see that you two are safe. Now I have to go to Colonel Rhodes. Are you alone, Master? This time, it was Beres who was nervous about her master who seemed to be about to fall into the quagmire of death. Luminara quietly firmly and said, I have to go. Colonel Rhodes volunteered to carry out this escort mission, but that doesn't mean it's his obligation to fight a powerful bounty hunter like Dutch who has lived for 2000 years. Beres looked at Luminara and said frankly, Master, it is not wise for you to face such a powerful enemy alone. Ahsoka also said, Lady Luminara, we can't let you and Colonel Rhodes go against that old monster alone. However, Luminara did not change her decision so easily and said seriously, I need the two of you to stay in Gunray's cell. You must understand that the Separatists' goal in attacking us this time is to rescue Newt Gunray. Just as she said this, the spacecraft began to shake violently and many shrill alarms sounded. Commander Jerry and Captain Agas quickly checked the control panel and reported, our engine is damaged, and the life support system, communications, and sensors are also damaged. We can only operate normally now. Luminara quickly contacted War Machine, hoping to get a response. After calling many times on the communication, she finally heard War Machine's voice. She asked happily, what happened over there? This guy is also a violent bastard. War Machine didn't finish his words. Gunshots and metal collisions were heard on the other end of the phone. After a while, War Machine's voice came again. The whole ship just experienced an earthquake. Or a space earthquake. What the hell is going on? Luminara heard the fighting over there and said anxiously, it seems that there is more than one assassin sent by Dooku on the Serenity. War Machine gritted his teeth and said, great. As if one asshole wasn't enough. How about Ahsoka and Barriss? There. Fine. Luminara had just finished speaking when she heard another round of gunfire and the muffled groan of the War Machine. Luminara and Ahsoka shouted anxiously at the same time, Colonel Rhodes, I'm fine. War Machine said loudly, the bastard got a lucky shot on me. Hold on, I'll come find you now. Luminara said, and ordered Ahsoka and Barriss to guard Newt Gunray, then hurried back to assist War Machine. Over at the military camp, right after War Machine finished speaking, Dutch slammed hard into the metal wall. The powerful impact force caused the metal wall to bend and deform, and at the same time the shape of War Machine appeared on the wall, which showed how powerful the force of this attack was. War Machine was dazed by the powerful blow, and watched Dutch running straight towards him. Instinctively, he quickly grabbed a pipe sticking out of the wall, and pulled it out. Then just as Dutch was within reach, he swung the pipe and smashed it into Dutch's face. War Machine didn't give the bounty hunter a chance to breathe as he unleashed a volley of buckshot at Dirge. Dutch felt each bullet pass through his body, which was now mostly exposed outside the armor, and he stretched out his leg and kicked War Machine back. War Machine quickly hit the ground, but he stood up quickly as he became more courageous as the battle went on. Seeing Dutch retreating, he shouted, oh, no, don't run, and chased after him. Luminara ran quickly through the corridor of the spaceship with a lightsaber in hand. She was unprepared to see the wall in front of her being pierced, revealing Dirge rushing towards her. She didn't react in time, and was grabbed by Dutch who was running towards her, and smashed against the wall. War Machine threw Dutch off Luminara, then helped her up and shouted, what are you doing here? Luminara looked a little embarrassed at the moment, but she still said firmly, I will not abandon you to face this monster alone. War Machine sighed, looked back, and saw that Dutch had disappeared, and exclaimed, shit, where did he go? Luminara didn't answer, but closed her eyes, and used the force to search. After a while, she found the bounty hunter. She opened her eyes and said, follow me, she said as she ran down a corridor, War Machine following not far behind her. Chapter 64 Bounty Hunters and War Machines 4. Ahsoka paced in front of Gunray's cell, showing how anxious she was at the moment, and Barriss looked at Ahsoka, because she felt the same way at the moment. Luminara is a fine Jedi master, but she has no idea how much trouble that bald witch can cause, Ahsoka said. Barriss calmly reminded, Colonel Rhodes is facing the bounty hunter. Although he is skilled in combat, he is alone against a monster-like being. Ahsoka's anxiety made her unable to think straight, and she said, we can't just stand here and do nothing while they risk their lives against these two difficult guys. Barriss hesitated. But our orders, she didn't know what to say, as conflicting thoughts and feelings filled her mind, her concern for her two comrades and her duty to her mission constantly wrestling with each other. Seeing this, Agus, the captain of the parliamentary commando not far away, walked up to the two and expressed his opinion on the matter. Sometimes, being a good soldier is to do what you think is right. This is why we are superior to robots. Hearing these words seemed to resolve some of the conflicts that Barriss was feeling at the moment, and Ahsoka nodded frequently. Barriss still hesitated. But, we can't abandon our duties, can we? But his tone was obviously not as firm as before. Arges proposed what seemed like a perfect solution to the problem. You two go help the general and the colonel. Commander Jerry and I will stay and guard Gunray, Barriss. And Ahsoka stared at each other for a moment before Barriss asked uncertainly, "Are you sure?" Agus smiled and said, "Of course. The sooner you two go to help, the sooner the battle will be over, and we can successfully complete this mission." The two nodded and left quickly. It didn't take long for Luminara and War Machine to find Dirge, because along the way were the corpses of clones who were slaughtered unilaterally. With the guidance of the clone corpses, they quickly arrived at the battlefield. Dirge stood in the center of the hangar, where the battle had begun, waiting for them to arrive. He held a struggling clone trooper by the neck, grinning cruelly. When he saw his two enemies approach, he laughed madly, then broke the clone's neck in front of them. Dirge tossed the clone trooper's body carelessly and said sarcastically, "I don't think either of you want to fight in such an enclosed space." When War Machine saw this scene, endless murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Since he came to the galaxy, he had never been so eager to kill someone. He stared at Dutch angrily, while Dutch smiled, seemingly unconcerned about the massacre he had committed on the road, and in front of both of them. Luminara also stared at the bounty hunter fiercely, her eyes focused, and said fiercely, "Bounty hunter, you will pay a heavy price for the life you took today." Dutch taunted, "I know I'll pay the price, but I'm afraid you two can't do it." War Machine stopped talking nonsense and fired incendiary bombs. He wanted to completely destroy this inhuman guy. Dutch's body was burned by the flames from the incendiary bomb, but he still stood. Luminara rushed forward, and the War Machine flew over her head. Then, in a rather odd move, Dutch brought his hands to his chest, as if to flex his biceps. As the two men got closer, Dutch suddenly loosened his hands, and two huge fists shot forward at the two men like cannonballs. F******. War Machine yelled as he tried to change his flight path, but it was too late as Dutch's fists smashed into him. Luminara ducked and dodged, and quickly slashed at Dirge's arm with her lightsaber, slicing nerves and muscle in his arm. She stepped back, and saw War Machine trapped in Dirge's other hand, so she ran to help him. Suddenly, she felt a warning from the Force, and she turned around, to see Dirge's appendages coming towards her. She dodged quickly, while swinging her lightsaber to cut off the appendages that extended over her. War Machine had been trying to break free of Dutch's control, and suddenly he found that the hand holding him loosened and fell to the ground. He looked up and saw that the hand holding him had fallen to the ground, and a stump actually called for help from Dutch, which was shocking. Standing before him was none other than Barriss and Ahsoka Tano, both with lightsabers in hand, facing Dirge. "Barriss, Ahsoka," Luminara said in surprise. The two young Jedi didn't dare to look at Luminara like children who had done something wrong. Finally, Ahsoka mustered up the courage to look up and said, I know you asked us to stay, but," Ahsoka said casually. Luminara sighed and nodded to show her understanding, then said, "Well, since you two are here, let's deal with this person together and try to end it quickly." Dirge's damaged body has fully recovered. The discrete nervous system and regenerative ability of the Jedi people are too strong. He smiled mysteriously and said, "You know, the last time I killed a Jedi was more than a century ago. Now I can continue to do this, starting with you three Jedi." War Machine warned the two girls, "You two should stay alert. This guy is very powerful, and his abilities are beyond your expectations." The two young female Jedi nodded solemnly and raised their lightsabers. All was quiet, with only the distant sounds of fire and sirens signaling the ferocity of the battle. Then, in an instant, both sides rushed forward. Dutch's body swelled up, and then many appendages extended out, reaching out towards the four charging people. All four dodged the blows expertly, Luminara and Barriss slashing away the reaching appendages, and War Machine flew into the air, firing his wrist-mounted assault rifle. Several bullets hit Dirge, but with limited damage, and Dirge grabbed the wreckage of a nearby destroyed starfighter and threw it at the War Machine. War Machine deftly dodged the incoming debris and flew towards Dutch, who kept backing away, preparing to charge up for another attack. At the last moment, War Machine slammed into the air and threw a flashbang at Dutch, while he yelled to the other three, "Close your eyes." The flashbang exploded, temporarily blinding Dutch, who yelled in anger. His healing factor quickly took care of the temporary blindness, but he suddenly shook and his vision returned, and he saw the azure blade protruding from his chest. He slowly looked behind him and saw Beresafie holding the lightsaber tightly, piercing his body. What the young Jedi didn't expect was that the bounty hunter began to laugh softly at her little cutie. Then he turned around and slapped Beres away. Beres stumbled to the floor, clenched his teeth, endured the pain, and asked in surprise, "Why are you still standing? My sword clearly pierced your spine." Dutch sneered, "Little cutie, I have almost no bones, not to mention a central nervous system. Are you really naive enough to think that a lightsaber through my chest will kill me?" Then, with incredible speed, Dutch reached the young Jedi in an instant and grabbed her hair. Beres cried out in pain and tried to use her hands to free herself from Dirge's control, but it was all in vain. Chapter 65 Bounty Hunters and War Machines 5. Barriss. Ahsoka yelled. Luminara also said anxiously, "Let her go immediately." Shaking his head, Dirge sneered, "I came here to kill you Jedi Knights and clones. Do you think I'm joking? You can hurt her." Ahsoka yelled, rushing towards Dirge and severing his arm that was holding Barriss. Dirge didn't dodge or show any pain. He just smiled. "More than 100 years have passed, and you Jedi Knights still haven't made any progress." He picked up the broken limbs on the ground and saw that the broken limbs and wounds were connected, as good as new. He lowered his head and looked at the two Jedi girls who fled far away and said, "I can feel your heartbeat from 200 meters away. Do you think you can sneak up on me?" Dutch rushed forward, and War Machine suddenly flew down, using the power of the booster to knock Dutch to the ground. Dutch snorted, puffed out his chest, and actually swallowed War Machine's foot into his body. F******. War Machine quickly activated his thrusters to escape quickly. "Hey, freaks, don't forget about us." Dirge turned and saw 3 Jedi all running towards him. He waved his extendable arms around and kept the 3 busy dodging. Suddenly, Dirge's outstretched arm wrapped around Luminara's arm like a cobra, exerting force continuously, causing the Jedi Master to groan in pain as his arm was nearly broken. Deke handled the group with ease, saying, "In my opinion, you are just like clowns jumping around in front of me. You are too slow." At this time, Jerry called frantically on the communicator, "General Luminara, Colonel Rhodes, Captain Agas is a traitor. He has let Gunray go, and the two of them escaped together. We've been deceived," Luminara exclaimed. Deke said calmly, "Now that they have left, we can have some fun from now on." War Machine had had enough of this abuse. He opened the silver armor cover on his chest armor, fired 3 macro missiles, and roared, "Fuck you, eat this." The missile penetrated Dutch's body, and he just stood there, seemingly unharmed. Suddenly, Dutch began to shake rapidly. His body bulged, as if inflated. He realized something was wrong and shouted angrily, "You bastard!" Boom! Dirge's body parts flew in all directions, his blood splattering all over the Jedi and Avengers. Ahsoka bent over and shook her arms to shake off the fragments of her body. She coughed violently, spitting out the blood that splashed into her mouth, and then continued to bend over and retch, which made her feel very sick. Luminara shook off the slime on her body and asked curiously, "Colonel Rhodes, you have such a weapon. Why didn't you use it from the beginning?" War Machine explained helplessly, "Because it is limited in number. There are only 6 left now, and we are not on Earth now, and we can't get a replacement after we use it up. So I won't use it unless it is absolutely necessary." Luminara nodded in understanding. Several people fell silent as they looked at the countless clone corpses around them. This tragic battlefield did not allow them to experience any joy of victory. The 4 quickly returned to the bridge of the Serenity and sent out a distress signal to the nearby Republic forces, as the Serenity was severely damaged throughout the enemy attack. After making contact with Yoda, Skywalker, and Captain America, the 4 bandaged their wounds in the medical bay along with many other injured clones who survived Dirge's massacre. Luminara looked down at her fellow clones, feeling a surge of self-blame for not being able to prevent the inhumane violence that had claimed the lives of so many of her loyal soldiers. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft voice. "Master, are you seriously injured?" Luminara looked at Barriss, who looked worried, and smiled comfortingly. "I'm fine. It may take time for the arm to heal." Barriss stared at Luminara's injured arm hesitated for a moment, raised his hands and said, "Master, if possible, I would like to use the techniques that Master Teresa taught me to help you heal your injury." Luminara looked up curiously, allowing her apprentice to take her injured arm in her hand. Barriss exhaled softly and closed her eyes, concentrating on calling upon the Force to help her. Feeling the all-pervading force flowing through her body and into her fingertips, Barriss gathered it in her fingertips, and a glowing energy emanated from her hands and began to surround Luminara's arm. Ahsoka and War Machine both blinked in amazement at the amazing sight as Luminara's injuries slowly began to heal. After a while, Barriss stopped and fell backwards weakly. Ahsoka, who had been standing by her side, quickly supported Barriss and prevented her from falling. "That's great, Barriss. Since when can you use the Force to heal yourself?" Ahsoka praised. Barriss said weakly, "This is when I was in the temple. Master Teresa discovered this skill of mine and kept guiding me to master it." War Machine also praised, "This skill is really amazing." Luminara looked at Barriss and smiled with relief. "Although the battle today was brutal, I'm proud of you, Barriss. You two are on the path to becoming model Jedi Knights, Barriss." And Ahsoka smiled happily. After receiving the praise, General, Colonel, Luminara, and War Machine both turned around to see Jerry standing in front of them with his helmet off. Luminara said, "Commander Jerry, I hope you were not hurt in the accident just now." Commander Gree forced a smile and said, "General, at least I'm still alive and breathing, which makes me much luckier than my clone brothers." Luminara said seriously, "This is my mistake. I didn't expect the enemy to be so powerful." Gree said calmly, "General, this is not your fault. The next time he comes, the Clone Corps and I will deal with that bounty hunter and let him know the consequences of slaughtering clone soldiers." Ahsoka asked confusedly, "Next time? What are you talking about? Colonel Rhodes already blasted that Dirge guy to pieces." Jerry frowned, took out the holographic device in his hand, and turned it on, then said, "Regarding this issue, I think the 4 officers need to watch this video." The person shown in the video was none other than an intact Dutch standing in front of the escape pod. War Machine's eyes widened in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me." Luminara also said seriously, "It seems that our enemy this time is very powerful and cannot be easily eliminated like those battle robots." Ahsoka and Barriss also looked bitter. Chapter 66, heading to the planet Auto Plutonia. Ant-Man looked at War Machine's damaged armor and exclaimed in disbelief, "My god, Rhodes, what kind of battle did you go through?" War Machine said depressedly, "That was a powerful bastard named Dirge. He is said to be a root man. He has a unique nervous and circulatory system that can resist most physical attacks. The nerve clusters throughout his body give him amazing reaction ability and strong regenerative ability. I even used macro missiles, but still couldn't kill him. He is just an old monster. Can you fix it?" Ant-Man said, "My repair skills are definitely not as good as Stark's, but at least I can make sure your armor is still usable." War Machine had returned the day before with a badly damaged Star Destroyer and a group of injured clones, along with Luminara, Ahsoka, and Barriss. The battle with the bounty hunter, named Dutch, was difficult, but miraculously, War Machine was not as badly injured as people imagined, and his armor was not damaged much point. But while they survived the battle against Dirge was a harsh reality check for the entire Avengers. Falcon and War Machine in particular were both well aware of what they were fighting for. If their equipment was damaged, they would be very vulnerable. Now, Ant-Man and the Wasp can repair their gear to a certain extent, but only to a certain extent. But now they are a million miles away from Avengers headquarters. They are out in space and don't know much about the materials and equipment needed to repair their gear, so it's going to be a difficult learning process to figure out how to adapt their gear to this galaxy. It's a daunting task ahead of all the Avengers, to say the least. Another constant task is to find their other teammates. Fortunately, the Jedi Temple not only generously provided the necessary resources, but more and more clone troops were also very willing to help find the others. The Avengers were grateful for this. Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and a few other Jedi Knights became friends and helped them gradually adjust to the slightly crazy reality of space. Captain Rex and the 501st are the friendliest of the Clone Legion. They are currently at a technical repair station within the Jedi temple, where they can repair their equipment, while gaining a better understanding of the technology and workings of the galaxy. At Obi-Wan's invitation, Captain America and Falcon boarded the Hunter-class Star Destroyer Endurance to head to their next destination. During the journey, they trained the clone team's close combat capabilities at Rex's request. In return, Ella taught Captain America lightsaber skills. This mutual teaching came to a halt with the arrival of Anakin Skywalker. Anakin said, "The coordinates have been locked, and we are on our way to the planet Otto Plutonia." After saying that, he noticed that there were many clones around and asked confusedly, "Oh, did I miss something exciting?" Captain Rogers and Sam are here to demonstrate their world's vast combat knowledge, Obi-Wan replied. "Really?" Anakin asked with interest. Rex said, "Yes, General, he taught us a lot of close combat skills." Falcon asked impatiently, "Where are we going?" because he noticed that several clones were carrying some winter clothes. Anakin motioned to Rex, who then pulled out a handheld holo projector that showed a winter tundra. "Otto Plutonia," Rex said immediately. "Our current mission target," Obi-Wan added. "It is located in the Pantora system and is the homeworld of Senator Rio Chucky." Falcon repeated the familiar name, crossed his arms in thought, and then asked doubtfully, "Have we heard of this name before? Why do I feel like I've heard it somewhere before?" Captain America reminded, "When we first came to the galaxy, she was on Naboo with Senator Amidala, the young blue-skinned girl." Falcon then remembered, and then asked Anakin, "Then why did you ask us to go together?" Anakin said bluntly, "We asked you to come and help us. We have been lucky every time. We have met some of your missing comrades on the planets we have visited, and they were not under the conditions where we could look for them. It was especially because of luck that we found Hope Van Dyne on the planet Meridian. So I think we can try our luck again." Hearing this, the two Avengers present nodded, expressing their gratitude to Anakin for always keeping the search for other members of the Avengers in mind. "Thank you for your continued help, Anakin," Captain America said gratefully. "We will do our best to help you complete this mission." "No problem, we are friends." Soon, after traveling in hyperspace for some time, the Star Destroyer exited hyperspace and approached its destination, with most of Anakin's corps wearing heavy winter gear. Many people began to board the gunships, and Captain America, Falcon, Kenobi, Skywalker, Rex and Domino's squad were on a gunship together with Anakin's R2-D2 and Padme's C-3PO. Falcon asked, "So, what exactly are the Republic and the Jedi here for?" "The people of Pantora are part of the Republic," Obi-Wan replied. "Republic bases are stationed on the Prime Planet and the planet Otto Plutonia. But recently, there has been no news from the base for several days. We were sent to investigate, and if it is an invasion by Separatist forces, we have to stop it." Captain America asked, "What if everything is normal? Could it be something else?" "Impossible, sir. Because that planet is uninhabited," said Rex. Falcon was silent for a while, then said, "Well, who knows? Let's go and see what the reason is." The gunboat began to descend, allowing the crew to fully feel the coldness of the planet. Anakin began assigning tasks. "Captain Rex, have your men survey the area before dark and set up as many sensors beacons as possible." 3PO, who was standing next to Captain America and Falcon, asked R3-D2, "Why would the Republic set up an outpost here?" R2-D2 uttered a few program words. 3PO said in confusion, "Chairman Pantora asked for this." "Why?" Speaking of Chairman, another large gunship landed not far from them, and a familiar young Pantoran and 3 other elderly men from her race walked up accompanied by 2 clone guards. Chapter 67 The Mysterious Attacker. Obi-Wan noticed their arrival and turned to greet them. "Chairman Joe, Senator Chucky, I suggest you wait here for a while until we check whether this area is safe." "However," Chairman Kaijo said, "I respect your judgment, General Kenobi, but I want to emphasize that Otto Plutonia is the sovereign territory of Pantora. It is quite rude for you to enter without permission." Falcon frowned, and he found that Chairman Pantora's attitude towards Kenobi was quite arrogant. Anakin said, "We thought this place was uninhabited, so we didn't inform you of the situation in advance." Chairman Joe retorted, "Our Pantora satellite is the only civilization in this galaxy. Your responsibility is to protect the people of this planet, not to set foot on the uninhabited Plutonia planet without permission. Falcon muttered, this guy is so arrogant. When did this desolate planet become this? Captain America just remained silent and watched this unpleasant conversation continue. Kenobi still said kindly, excuse me, Chairman, this is decided by the Parliament, not us. At Chairman Joe's signal, Senator Chuchi stepped forward and said, Master Kenobi, in terms of territorial rights, the chairman is right. Since this planet is uninhabited, Pandora has the right to be a protectorate. Anakin and Obi-Wan looked at each other for a while, and the latter tacitly agreed with Chairman Joe's point of view. Chairman Joe nodded with satisfaction, then turned his eyes to Captain America and Falcon and asked, GD Master, may I ask who those two people are? Chuchi immediately recognized them and said with a smile, they are members of the Avengers, Captain Rogers and Lieutenant Wilson. They saved the lives of Senator Naboo and many civilians, including myself, when the Separatists attacked Naboo. Both Avengers stepped forward, and Captain America said, it's nice to see you again, Senator Chuchi. And Falcon said casually, I recognized you when I saw you walking over in this cold weather just now. Falcon's casual way of speaking made Chairman Joe a little annoyed. Chucky didn't care at all. He smiled and said, I'm relieved to see you guys coming with the GD. With you guys here, I don't think we'll be on this tundra for too long. Kenobi said, Anakin, you stay with the senator for a while and keep her safe. Falcon took the initiative and said, Master Kenobi, I'll go with you to check the base. The red-winged thrush can help scout deeper into this base. Thank you very much, Sam. Falcon, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rex and Chairman Joe walked to the entrance of the Plutonia base. After one of the clones entered the security code, the metal door opened. The clone troopers were all holding weapons, ready at any time in case something came out to attack them. Obi-Wan's eyes were cast at a rather wrong scene in front of them. He saw a row of poles stuck in the ground in the base, and a clone trooper's helmet was on top of each pole. Chairman Joe vowed, it must have been done by the Separatists. I don't think so, Obi-Wan said. Falcon also echoed, I've never seen a robot do such a thing. As he spoke, he started the red-wing thrush and let it fly deep into the base, telling the clones to follow the drone and keep a certain distance. They also began to walk deeper into the base. Falcon's drone transmitted information about the base to him, and finally found that all the clones in the base were dead. The GD Knights were angry about this information. They quickened their pace and soon arrived at the main control room of the base. There are no survivors. Rex looked down at a fallen clone and said dejectedly. Chairman Joe stood in front of the control panel and asked, is it possible that the Separatists are building a forward base to attack Pandora? Obi-Wan looked around and said, not necessarily. Look at the computers, they have no signs of damage at all, and there are no signs of data being collected. This is not the first time we have dealt with the Separatists, so I have reason to believe that this is definitely not done by the Separatists. Falcon asked puzzledly, what caused it, Kenobi? What we have in front of us now is a base where all the soldiers are dead. Before Kenobi could answer Falcon's question, Rex returned and reported, General Kenobi, my scouts discovered a robot base on the other side of the ice ridge. It appears to have been abandoned. Outside, Chucky and Captain America had not seen each other since their last encounter in the Senate building. Chucky said with a hint of mischief, Captain Rogers, I heard about some of your recent outstanding achievements. It looks like you've been very busy lately. Captain America replied, you look as busy as I am. I didn't expect to run into a familiar face here. Chucky said, the galaxy can be very small sometimes, Master Skywalker, right? Anakin came back to his senses when he heard the senator say his name. Senator Chucky, what did you just say? Chucky said unhappily, Padme talked about you. When she heard that you and Master Obi-Wan Kenobi were sent to accompany Chairman Joe and me to Plutonia, she was relieved, but also very angry. Angry? Anakin asked with amusement. Why? She said you never plan things out, you just take things one step at a time. Captain America laughed and said, to put it bluntly, what Senator Padme means is that you don't think before you do anything. Anakin couldn't help but snorted, and Chucky was also amused by Captain America's joke. Then, Anakin said narcissistically, so what, I'm so lucky every time. Anakin, Steve. Both of them turned around and saw that Obi-Wan Kenobi had returned with the others. Kenobi said, "The bark flying bikes are being prepared now. A robot base was found not far from here. What's the status of this base?" Anakin asked. Falcon said, "Like the clone base, all the robots are dead." Obi-Wan then said to Chucky, "Senator, you'd better stay here with the others and the chairman. We'll be back soon." Chucky simply nodded and agreed to the suggestion, while the GD, Avengers, and Clone Squadron rode their bark speeders across the snowy plains to the droid base. Upon arriving at the base, they immediately saw a familiar sight, with the droids' heads propped up on a row of spears. Falcon made a cold joke, "Well, at least they didn't discriminate against any side, and the attackers were still fair." Captain America speculated, "So they attacked both bases, and didn't work for either side." Obi-Wan thoughtfully said, "We need to find out what the purpose of these potential enemies is, and we try not to get ourselves involved in another galactic conflict." Anakin agreed and said, "Rex, set up some more sensor beacons. Steve, would you like to come in and take a look?" Captain America nodded. Falcon activated the Red Wing Thrush to continue aerial reconnaissance of the robot base. Everyone quickly checked the robot base and found that it was exactly the same as the clone base, except that all the robots were killed and their heads were hung on spears. Nothing else in the base was damaged. Captain America pointed out, "Whoever did this was very thorough. There are no survivors in the two bases." Rex added, "And the combat effectiveness is strong. There are no bodies of the attackers except for the robots, which means they have no casualties. So it was a surprise attack." Anakin speculated. Obi-Wan and Falcon walked out of a door, and Obi-Wan shouted to them, "Did you find anything?" "Nothing," Anakin said, looking down at the ground, where he saw a particularly strange shape imprinted on the snow, and then said, "But there is a large set of footprints here." Soon, they arrived at the main control room of the robot base. Obi-Wan fiddled with the surveillance video. He entered some commands and then said, "I think I found something." The video shows a robot firing in different directions, shouting, "There are too many of them. They have occupied the base. We need reinforcement." The last clip shows a large furry creature pouncing on the robot from behind, and then the scene ends. "What is that?" Captain America asked confusedly. Everyone shook their heads and said they didn't know. Rex made a new discovery at this time and said, "The robot's log shows that they are investigating the southern canyon." Kenobi said, "Then we can start the investigation from this canyon. Rex, you go to the base and tell Chairman Joe and Senator Chucky about our progress." Falcon took the initiative and said, "Rex and I will go back together, and Red Wing can conduct aerial reconnaissance in case the unidentified creature appears and attacks Chairman Joe and Senator Chucky." Captain America, Kenobi and Anakin left the robot base and headed for the southern canyon. Chapter 68, The Tals. Falcon, Rex and the other clones returned to the base. After returning to the base, they saw that most of the 501st Legion was already working hard to rebuild the base. Chairman Kai Kaiwa was commanding the troops, while Chukai stood aside in a daze. Falcon greeted her and pulled the senator back from his distraction. Chucky came back to his senses and said, "Oh, Lieutenant Wilson, you're back. Where are the GD Knights and Captain Rogers?" Falcon said, "We found out the reason for the attack on the two bases, and the three of them went to investigate." Chucky asked, "So it wasn't done by the Separatists, was it?" Falcon shook his head. "I know that Chairman Joe firmly believes that it was done by the Separatists, but now the facts are in front of us." Then, Falcon looked at the endless snow-covered tundra and guessed, "Whatever it is, it must have come from there. My guess is, they are either defending their territory from invaders or expanding. But I'd prefer the former." Chucky was concerned in another direction and asked eagerly, "So, is there still a chance for a peaceful solution?" Falcon shrugged and said, "I hope it can be resolved peacefully, so that no more soldiers will die in vain." "Died in vain?" An angry voice came from behind. Falcon turned around and saw Kai Kaiwa walking over with a frown. "How could this death be in vain?" Kaijo said, pointing at several clones who were burying their sacrifices, and continued, "It is clear to me that whatever attacked these clones does not want peace, and only wants to use violence against the Republic and the people of Pantora. May I ask what makes you so sure that this matter will be revealed so easily?" Falcon frowned. He didn't like this man walking up to him so unscrupulously and pointing fingers at him arrogantly. He said patiently, I don't want anyone to die, but if there is a chance to resolve this issue without any bloodshed, I will do my best. Kikyo retorted, aren't you a soldier, Lieutenant Wilson? I thought that all of you here, except the clone troopers, would understand the necessity of retaliating against an obviously aggressive species. Falcon suddenly exuded a strong aura and said unhappily, it is necessary to correct you. I used to be a soldier, but now I'm a member of the Avengers. This means that we have our own set of different standards. In addition, I hope you understand that I don't need to follow your orders, so don't point fingers here. Chuki hurriedly stepped forward to smooth things over. Chairman Kyo sneered angrily and turned away. Falcon looked at Kyo's receding back and said disdainfully, so, that bastard is the leader of your race? This made Chuki gasp. In her impression, everyone in the Avengers was polite and treated everyone in the Galactic Republic very politely. Today's scene made her realize that the Avengers were not friendly to everyone, and this friendly relationship was mutual. At this moment, she was somewhat glad that the Avengers stood on the side of the Republic. Chuki said earnestly, Lieutenant Wilson please. Chairman Kyo has been leading our Pantoran people long before I was born. Oh, really? Then why is he not a senator of the Republic representing your race? Falcon asked back. This made Chuki stunned for a moment and speechless for a while. I was chosen because. Chuki fell into deep thought. Why was she, a young girl from Pantoran, chosen to represent her entire Pantoran race, instead of many other people who seemed more qualified to her? To be honest, this bothered her for a long time, because while she accepted the position very humbly, she also had moments of self-doubt. Thankfully, she'd made friends like Senators Amidala, Organa, and Mothma who had been very supportive of her political career, but they weren't here right now. She was glad to be working with Chairman Cho this time around, but he gave her a pretty harsh lecture when she speculated about the clones' deaths. He meant everything he said to fully support fighting those who weren't aligned with the Pantorans, but deep down she thought there could be a better, more peaceful way to resolve this. Falcon looked at the young blue-skinned girl and said, I'm sorry, Senator, I didn't mean to do that. Chucky blinked, and when he heard his apology, he quickly shook his head and said firmly, no, Lieutenant Wilson, you have given me a lot of inspiration about my position as a senator of Pantora. If I may, Lieutenant, I would like to hear if you have other ideas about this situation. Falcon thought for a long time before saying uncertainly, in my opinion, he represents the people of your country, but you speak for your entire race in the galaxy. This means you are more responsible for this conflict than he is. Chucky smiled at Falcon. Thank you, Lieutenant. You made me understand a lot. At the same time, Captain America, Anakin and Obi-Wan began to investigate the Southern Canyon. The three stood in the icy Grand Canyon, and they all observed with binoculars. There is some kind of reflected light there. Anakin picked up his binoculars and looked at where Obi-Wan pointed. Sure enough, he saw the same picture. Captain America also spotted a fleeting flash of reflected light nearby and speculated, they are signaling each other. What do you mean? Obi-Wan asked. Captain America pointed in another direction, and Obi-Wan looked in that direction, and also spotted another reflected light. Well, they know we are coming, Obi-Wan said. But they haven't attacked us yet, Anakin added. Obi-Wan speculated, I think that's because we haven't posed a threat to them yet. The three jumped on their speeders and continued to fly deeper into the canyon. When they passed a stone bridge, they saw a village on the other side of the stone bridge. I think we found something to attack the base, Captain America said. He found several large furry, bipedal, four-eyed creatures wielding spears. Towels, Obi-Wan said in surprise. I didn't know they had a settlement here. Captain America asked in confusion. Towels? Anakin explained. The Tals are a race from the planet Arzok 3rd, but Arzok 3 is a long way from this area. I don't know how they came here to settle down. Kenobi said. More importantly, how long have they been here? The three of them walked into the village, passing by many huts carved out of the ice walls. Captain America made a guess, maybe a century or more, because I can't see any trace of galactic technology here at all. Anakin said, if I had known this, I should have let 3PO come with us. He can speak the language of the Tals. They soon stood in front of the largest hut in the village, and Anakin asked, "How will we talk to them?" Captain America shrugged and said, "We'll have to improvise." Obi-Wan couldn't help but joked, this is one of Anakin's favorite ways of acting. Oh, haha. After a while, a burly Tals walked out of the hut and looked at the three people in front of him. After a few seconds of silence, the Tals in front of them made a series of clicking sounds, raised his spear above his head, and then slammed it to the ground. Say something. Oh, shut up. Captain America just rolled his eyes at their little joke, looked at the spear on the ground and thought for a moment, and said, "Let me try." Captain America grabbed his shield, thinking that the Tals would understand a similar action, so he threw his shield in front of the spear. The Tals seemed satisfied with this action, and motioned them to enter the hut. Kenobi nodded approvingly, and the three entered the hut. For both sides, some communication barriers took time to eliminate, but they finally got the information they needed after unremitting efforts. The tall and strong Tals in front of them was the leader of their group, named TIE Senator. Several Tals people quickly lowered their heads to draw, and then raised their crude paintings, which clearly showed the whole process of the robots provoking the Tals village, and then they eliminated the robots and clones. "What do you think?" Captain America asked the Jedi Knights. The Tals may have thought that, if the droids invaded the village, the clones would do the same, Anakin guessed. "It seems so," Kenobi said, looking back at the Tals leader, muttering to himself, "All we want is peace." Captain America pulled a page of paper from the Talsman's hand, and, using his extraordinary skills, quickly drew a rough sketch of a human and a Tals shaking hands. "Peace," Captain America said, holding out the drawing, and handing it to the Tals leader. The Tals leader Sen took a moment to study the meaning of the picture, and finally he nodded in agreement. When the three left the hut, it was completely dark outside, with only the fire in the village illuminating the area. Obi-Wan turned to say goodbye to the Tals leader, and was surprised when the leader gave him a warm and friendly bear hug, which made Anakin and Captain America very amused. "Oh, you've made a new friend, Obi-Wan," Anakin said. "Then would you like to switch with me?" Anakin didn't have a chance to respond, because he was also hugged by the Tals leader, and Captain America was not spared such a bear hug. After landing again, the three of them were grinning. Captain America rubbed his old waist, and said to himself, "Not as bad as the Hulk or Thor's hug, but still." They walked to where the bark flying bike was parked, ready to return to the base. Anakin complained while starting the flying bike. "Too bad long-range communication doesn't work, because of the storm forming. Then we have to leave quickly, the sooner the better," Obi-Wan said. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69. Arrogant and belligerent Chairman Kaio. Chucky paced around the command center of the base with great concern. "If you keep going like this, we'll see the trench you made here," Falcon joked, hoping to ease the tense atmosphere. Chucky smiled apologetically and said, "Sorry, I'm just worried about the GD and Captain Rogers." "Your worry is not without reason." Rex kept checking the communication to see if there was any missing information, and muttered, "According to the agreement, they should have reported the situation not long ago." Falcon was calm and said nonchalantly, "You have nothing to worry about, but then again, the captain has not had much luck in snowy days." Rex and Chucky both looked at Falcon helplessly. He was still in the mood to joke at this time. Why didn't they realize that the Avengers were so generous before? When the news of the return of the GD and Captain America came out in the base communication, Falcon shrugged and said, "See, I told you not to worry." When the three of them went to meet Captain America and the others, they met Chairman Kaijo, because he also wanted to talk to the GD who had just returned. Chachi greeted, "GD Master, Captain Rogers, I'm glad to see you return safely from this snowstorm." Before the three could speak, Chairman Kaio, the head of the Pantora government, could not wait to ask, "What did you find?" "We found that the planet Otto Plutonia is inhabited," Kaio said sharply. "Inhabited? This is absolutely impossible." Anakin said, there is a Tal settlement on this planet. Chachi asked in confusion, what are the Tals doing here? They don't have any registered colonies so far away from the planet Alzok III. Kenobi shook his head, then said, they seem to have lived on this planet for a long time. Kaijo shouted angrily, this is ridiculous. For centuries, the people of Pantora have been exploring this desolate planet, but have never found any life form here. Captain America was not happy with Kaijo's attitude, and retorted, then I think your explorers don't seem to be working hard enough. Although the Tals are extremely lacking in technological means, they are quite smart. They should not want to talk to your explorers, until now we have discovered them. Captain America's words made Pantora leader Kaijo was very angry, and said in a harsh voice, despite this, these barbarians have invaded the Pantora system, and attacked a base of the Republic. Captain Rex, get your people ready for battle. Falcon stepped forward to stop him and said, wait, this won't solve anything. Kaijo said angrily, this planet belongs to us. Everything in the entire Pantora system belongs to us. Anakin was surprised by Kaijo's barbaric theory and said, Chairman, Tals does not belong to you. They are free people, not your property. They have settled here for a long time. Chairman Joe argued fiercely, they still stand on the sovereign territory of Pantora and attack our base with spears and stones. It is obvious that these barbarians are unaware of the conventions of other galactic civilizations. Being separated from their people must have made their heads even more stupid. Captain America said loudly and coldly, Chairman, such inappropriate words should not come out of your mouth. We assure the Tals people that they will not retaliate again. They hope to achieve peace. They even hope to compensate the clones and hold a funeral for them as compensation for their wrongful attack. Anakin added. Chuki stood up and said, Chairman Cairo, if this is true, how to deal with the Tals people here must be decided by the Senate of the Republic. To say the least, at least the senator representative of the planet Azok 3 should be informed of the situation here before. However, Chairman Pantora did not want to hear this, and interrupted his people's senator. Senator Chuki, are you questioning your leader? But Chairman, I don't want to ask it a second time. Please answer seriously. Are you questioning me, Senator? Falcon was getting more and more annoyed by Kikairo's arrogant attitude, and asked directly, what's the matter with you? She wants peace. We are all working hard to make this happen here, and you are provoking a meaningless battle for no reason. How dare you? Chuki said. Although I disagree with the way Falcon spoke to you, I do agree with him, said Obi-Wan. We will not send our soldiers to die in a meaningless battle that will cause losses to both sides. However, the Pantoran chairman once again showed his stubbornness and arrogance. It is obvious that this Tals colony is nothing more than lower animals without intelligence, and therefore, the civilized system convention does not include them. Obi-Wan said as gently as always, whether or not the planet Otto Plutonia is recognized as a Tals colony, the Tals are a species recognized as part of the Republic. Therefore, this matter should be resolved by the Jedi Knights and Senator Chachi, not by the Pantoran leader Chairman Yu. Kikayo argued, Jedi Knight, where you are standing now is my weird Pantoran territory, therefore, it is under my jurisdiction, not yours. Obi-Wan did not want to argue with a stubborn Pantoran leader and said, anyway, the agreed time for our meeting with the Tals leader Tai Sen is almost up, and we must leave now. Joe snorted and said, okay, this way I have enough time to drive these barbarians out. Anakin instructed, Rex, get the clone warriors ready, but we will not attack under any circumstances. If Chairman Joe wants to fight, he can do it himself. Falcon glanced at the weather and said, with the blizzard outside getting bigger and bigger, we can't take the gunboat, and there are not enough flying bikes to carry all of us at the moment. We will make do with it, and leave the rest of us in the base in case the blizzard comes. Anakin said. As time passed, the storm began to get bigger and bigger. A large number of flying bikes soon arrived at the agreed meeting place with the Tals, which was set at the former robot base. After getting off the car, Chairman Joe said to Rex, Captain, let your people station by the ice ridge. Once those barbarians arrive, we will fire at all of them. Falcon was completely furious. What's wrong with you? You don't understand, right? Are you really determined to kill them all? You do all this just to make this planet uninhabited? He's right, Chairman. Obi-Wan also said seriously, there will be no fighting or war. We are here to achieve peace. Jedi Knight, you must do as I command. Everything in the Pandora galaxy is under my jurisdiction. The Tals are here, Anakin said, and sure enough, the Tals appeared on the surrounding snow-capped mountains riding Nagrachi cats, and more Tals emerged from the snow. Captain America said, so I believe your ambush will not happen, and will not succeed. Anakin ordered, Rex, let our people lay down their weapons. We are not here to fight. The clone captain nodded, and he quickly gave orders, while also reminding them not to listen to anything that came out of Kijo's mouth. Chairman Pantora gnashed his teeth as he walked alongside his armed guards towards Chief Tals, and Senator Chachi became increasingly concerned about her boss's current series of actions. Chapter 70, The Resolute and Brave Senator. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Captain America first arrived at the droid base and politely greeted the leader of Tals, TIE Senator. TIE SEN nodded to the three of them and pounded his chest with his fist to show that he kept his promise. Obi-Wan bowed and said, Chief TIE SEN, we are here as promised, along with Ryo Chachi, Senator of the Galactic Republic, and Kai Kai, Chairman of Pandora. Chachi walked up with 3PO to greet them, but was interrupted by Kai Kai. But 3PO expressed Chuck's meaning, and said in the language of the Tals people, Chief TIE SEN welcomes you here, and she hopes that you can become friendly neighbors. Joe growled in a low voice, these barbarians have no rights here. 3PO acted as a translator and said, Chief TIE SEN knows about the Galactic War. He hopes to remain neutral, stay away from conflicts, and live in peace. However, Joe didn't care about these. He grabbed the robot roughly and turned to face him. While glaring at TIE SEN, he said in an aggressive way, listen, robot, you have to translate every word I say. Hearing this, Chucky spoke up, Chairman, we need to be cautious here. We can't afford. Joe said sternly, Senator, it's not your turn to speak here, and there is no need for diplomacy. Joe stepped forward, but was stopped by Captain America. Take your hands off me, Captain Rogers. Captain America stared at Kaijo and said, Chairman, you can't start a war here. Master Kenobi said that the Tals are citizens recognized by the Republic. This means that Senator Chachi represents the people of Pandora, not you. Obi-Wan also said, Chairman, he is right about this. Joe pushed Captain America's arm away roughly and said, this is now an internal matter of Pandora, which means that neither the Republic nor the Jedi have a say in this matter. Captain America and Falcon looked at each other and said, we both don't agree. Belong to any party you said, so you can regard us as the third party. We support the Tals people, you can try it. Joe roared, and then the US team said sternly to TIE SEN, listen, you barbarian, this planet belongs to the satellite of Pandora. As the supreme leader and ruler of Pandora, you can't do anything on this planet without my order, otherwise I will drive you all away at all costs. Chairman Joe left after his impassioned roar, leaving behind a stunned Chucky and the dissatisfied Jedi Knights and Avengers. Well, that guy's words are pure fart. Falcon muttered. TIE SEN seemed to be ready to leave after hearing C-3PO's translation. Chucky hurriedly stepped forward and said, Chief TIE SEN, what Chairman Joe said to you is very excessive, but he does not represent all of us Pandora people. Please give me a little more time, we will leave this planet soon. Chief TIE SEN looked at Chucky for a while, nodded, and left. So what should we do now? Falcon asked loudly. Obi-Wan said, Chairman Joe's desire to attack the Tals is a serious violation of the law and is immoral. We need someone to replace him, because he seems to refuse to listen to Senator Chachi's advice. Chachi pondered for a few seconds, her eyes lit up, and she said, the head of the parliament. He has the power to overturn the chairman's decision. Captain America said, then we'd better contact him while the weather improves. Obi-Wan nodded and said, we must hurry back to the base. General, Rex said to Skywalker, what should we do now? Anakin ordered, stay with Chairman Joe, but do not participate in conflicts or confrontations under any circumstances, just be defensive. Chairman Joe stood in front of the clone team, his eyes scanning the surroundings, looking for the Tals. Behind him, some clones talked privately. Why are we doing this? Number 5 asked. Because that blue-headed guy wants to fight. Heavy said. Rex said firmly, we are not here to fight. Our mission is to keep Chairman Joe alive, but we cannot provoke the townspeople. Do you understand? Suddenly, Rex shouted, defense. The clones quickly used their flying motorcycles to form a defensive circle. Joe asked angrily, Captain, what are you doing? Why don't you attack? Rex just said expressionlessly, follow orders. At this time, Senator Chachi was talking remotely with the Speaker of the Pantora Council in the base. The Speaker said, in view of recent events, the Council believes that Chairman Joe's actions are inappropriate, so his chairmanship has been suspended for a period of time. Senator Chachi, you are now authorized to conduct peace negotiations on behalf of the Pantora people and the Tals people. Chachi said seriously, Speaker, I will not let you down. As this brief communication meeting ended, Obi-Wan led everyone to prepare to return to the scene, because he was afraid of any bloodshed. Captain America asked, Senator, now that you have been authorized, how will you solve the problem of the Tals people? Chachi thought for a while, looked at the Avengers and the GD, and said, well, I hope one of you will do this on behalf of the people of Pantora, because each of you is more experienced than me. Falcon said, sorry, Chachi, we are not here to do this, and we can't do it. Anakin also said, he is right, Senator. You must come forward to solve this matter yourself. We can't represent your identity. Chachi frowned, feeling very bitter, because she was too young and lacked experience in resolving disputes. Falcon looked at Chachi and said seriously, remember, you represent the people of Pantora and the Galactic Republic. This sentence made her eyes brighten, and her eyes firmer. After arriving at the conflict site, the gunship landed not far away. They walked down, and saw that many clones were injured, and some had even died. All this was caused by the behavior of one person. Anakin shouted angrily, everyone stop, get the wounded to the gunship now. One of the wounded was none other than Chairman Joe, who struggled to stand, still staring at the towels. Although his vision was already blurry, he still saw Senator Chachi walking towards him. He reached out to grab her and said, you must avenge me. As chairman of Pantora, I order you to kill. Chachi said calmly and firmly, I'm sorry, Chairman, I will not do such a thing. By order of the Senate, you are hereby removed from office, because your behavior does not represent the will of the people of Pantora at all. Joe was stunned for a long time, and then he said, I can't. Before he finished speaking, he fell to the snow and lay motionless. A clone trooper bent over to check his pulse and then announced, the former chairman of Pantora was dead. For young Senator Chachi, it was not a pleasant thing to see Joe die, but she had to look away, because she had more important things to do. Chachi turned to the nearest clone, and asked for a clone rifle, taking off her coat, and wrapping it around the barrel of the rifle. She walked past the line of speeders, and approached TIE Senator. TIE SEN raised her hands to signal the Tals to stop. Representatives of the two races now stood before each other. Chachi raised the rifle in her hands high in the air, and the Tals leader stared at her warily until she slammed the rifle into the snow. Chachi spoke gently but firmly, to die for your people is a great sacrifice, but to live for your people is a greater sacrifice. I choose to live for my people and shoulder the burdens they have entrusted to me. What is your choice, Chief TIE SEN? After a series of clicks and grunts, TIE SEN raised his spear, looking like he might knock the young senator down at any moment. But Chachi stood her ground, not moving to show that she would not give up her beliefs. Instead of attacking her, TIE SEN threw the spear next to the rifle. Chief TIE SEN also chose to live for his people. 3PO said, and a smile appeared on Chachi's face. From today, the people of Pantora recognize the sovereignty of the Tals people on the planet of Otto Plutonia. Chachi said with a sense of relief. TIE SEN also said, and 3PO translated, Chief TIE SEN also hopes that your people can do the same, and hope to establish a long-term peaceful relationship. Then, Chief Tals surprised Chachi with a bear hug, while Captain America, Obi-Wan, and Anakin behind Chachi looked distressed, knowing how painful it was for Chief Tals to symbolize a friendly hug. Putting her down, TIE SEN said the last sentence, and 3PO translated it again in a more humorous voice. The chief said that, if the senator wants to visit Tals, he can come and go freely at any time. The Tals people will always welcome you. Chachi smiled and nodded at TIE Senator. The two took a step back and bowed to each other. The two races established peace through this brief conflict. After Chachi returned to the Republic army, she saw the last wounded clone enter the gunship, and the sacrificed clones were put aside, ready to be buried elsewhere. You did a good thing, Chachi. Thank you, Falcon. This is what must be done for the future of our people. As the group headed to a gunship to leave the planet Otto Plutonia, Obi-Wan said a suggestion. Now that you have reached peace on behalf of the people of Pantora and the Tals, you need to know something vital. What, Master Kenobi? Keep the hard-earned peace between the two races, and set a good example for other races, so that such conflicts can continue to decrease. Chachi straightened up, with a firm light in his eyes, and said, Master Kenobi, I will do my best. Chapter 71. Is that guy Quicksilver? Back on Coruscant, Captain America was studying the 7 lightsaber forms of the Jedi Knights. War Machine was napping on the couch, and Falcon, Ant-Man, and the Wasp were studying a set of materials Anakin had given them. Through scanning and testing, they compared the chemicals and element of the set with those on Earth, and found that it was possible to integrate well with War Machine's equipment. Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano stood at the door, interrupting their chat. Hey, guys in the sky. Falcon smiled brightly, which made Anakin look at Falcon expressionlessly. I find it ironic that you guys actually call me that, Falcon. Anakin said, and Falcon shrugged. What's wrong, Anakin? Falcon asked. The Jedi Council has just received information from Rylus, a Republic planet currently occupied by the Separatists. When we received the news that Jedi Master Emagonde and a few of his men were still alive and assisting the freedom fighters on the planet Rylus to resist the robot army, it was a bit surprising, to be honest. We once thought that Emagonde and his clone army had all died. Glad to hear this good news. Why did you tell us? Captain America said. Anakin raised the holographic projector and played the video sent from Rylus. This is information that may be of interest to all of you. In the video, Captain America saw a new alien that he had never seen before next to the clone captain, and they were firing at the enemy. This is Jedi Master Emagonde, Anakin explained. The video then showed Jedi Master Emagonde saying, my men and I along with Cham Syndulla's Twi'lek Freedom Revolutionary Guard have been holding out on Rylus, but we are losing men and supplies. We need rescue now. The Separatists have taken many Twi'leks hostage and are enslaving them. There was an explosion in the background and the two almost lost their balance just before the video ended, and the two seemed to disappear before being engulfed in the flames of the explosion. At first, the Avengers didn't know what to make of it, but in Cap's trained and enhanced eyes, he saw something unusual. Can you slow it down and replay it again? Cap asked. Anakin nodded and replayed the video again, Cap asking him to slow down the last few seconds before the explosion ended, and something pulled the Jedi clones out of the blast. What was that? Ant-Man asked, looking up at Anakin in confusion. I don't know, Anakin said, but Master Yoda used the Force to sense that Master Emagonde was not dead. Something saved him, but he couldn't sense what it was. Captain America pondered for a moment, reviewing what he had seen. If Master Yoda said that this Jedi Master was not dead, then it meant that something or someone saved them. This person had the ability to protect them from the explosion or serious injuries, or this person was fast enough to escape from the explosion and fire. He prayed in his heart that his guess was true, because he felt that this person should be his teammate. His thought process was interrupted when Obi-Wan Kenobi entered the room. Obi-Wan nodded to the Avengers and Ahsoka and said, we just received news that Master Emma has reconnected with us. The 3 Jedi Knights led the Avengers to the main meeting room inside the Jedi Temple and walked into a room filled with most of the Jedi Council members. The few who were not in the Jedi Temple participated in the meeting through holographic projection. Master Emma, can you hear us? Asked Jedi Master Mace Windu. After a while, Master Emma's voice came. Can, Windu? Is there any way we can enhance his signal? Plo Koon asked. Obi-Wan stepped forward and began to debug. After a few seconds, the signal stabilized, and Master Emma and his clone captain, as well as the Twi'lek around him, could be seen more clearly. Master Emma said tiredly, the robots have been interfering with our signals for some time. The robots are building a stronger defense. We can't hold on for long. Don't worry, we plan to go there as soon as possible. Obi-Wan said. Where are you now? Plo Koon asked. Underground. Master Emma replied. Windu said, we will come to support you immediately. Master Emma nodded. We will wait for you, Master Emma. The clone outside the screen shouted to Master Emma, then entered the video range and saluted his superior. Sergeant Grit. General, come back with supplies quickly. In the holographic video, Master Emma and Syndulla were relieved after hearing this. This is good news. Syndulla said happily. Who is coming? Anakin couldn't help asking. He has been helping us, and his speed is amazing. The robots can't even catch him. Captain Killy said. Hearing this, the Avengers looked at each other with surprised expressions. Don't you think it's that guy Quicksilver? Falcon muttered. I don't know. Hope replied. Captain America looked at the video firmly and said, Master Emma. Master Emma looked at Captain America with a puzzled look, because he didn't know who this person was. Sorry, who are you? Master Emma asked politely. Captain America introduced himself and said, Captain Rogers, the man who just came back. Did he happen to be with you? The video was suddenly interrupted, which made everyone stunned for a moment, and Ant-Man couldn't help but complain. Well, what kind of luck is this? Exclamation mark. It was interrupted at this time. Is there any way we can restore the signal? Arla Secura asked. It should be possible, but it will take time. Obi-Wan said helplessly. Yoda said, the best way is to take action now, to help our Jedi brothers and soldiers. Anakin came to the console and entered a series of commands to call up the current status of Rylith. You may know that there is a blockade of Separatists around this planet. From the information sent back by our scouts, the blockade is very tight. On the holographic display, they saw at least 6 Rookery Hook class battleships and dozens of Bountiful class frigates. This is a tight blockade with almost no entry point. Anakin said, but now, judging from their arrangement, the right wing seems to be the weakest, and we can cut in from here. But it is still quite difficult, Skywalker. Plo said. Yoda said. This requires a strong force. Master Windu and Master Kenobi will form a strike force with Secura and carry out this rescue mission with Master Skywalker. Captain America suddenly stepped forward and said, we have to go too. The Avengers all nodded. Kenobi asked, are you sure, Captain Rogers? Captain America just nodded. Chapter 72, Rylith Aerial Battle 1. Master Emma muttered, the explosion cut off the signal. We just hope they can get there in time. Syndulla said, sorry I'm late, guys. The droids out there are just too annoying. Quicksilver said as he chewed a small piece of compressed rations. We can imagine, Pietro. Syndulla said as he gave the silver-haired man a warm smile. Quicksilver saluted jokingly, causing Syndulla to roll his eyes at him. Quicksilver casually said, what was going on just now? It looked like you were talking to someone. Master Emma responded, with the Jedi Council, but the signal was cut off. There are more people like you? Since I've been helping out as much as I can, do you think they'll reward me with the lightsabers you all have? Quicksilver said with interest. Master Emma smiled and said, normally lightsabers are not given as rewards, but there are always exceptions. Lieutenant Killy pretended to be annoyed and asked, Master Emma, can't you be serious? If Pietro gets one of your lightsabers, he will accidentally cut most of us in half. Quicksilver said, Killy, what you said is very likely, but I will be careful. Syndulla brought the topic back and said, nevertheless, it is gratifying to get support. Killy frowned and pointed out the key point. The question is, how long will it take them to break through the blockade of Rylith? Master Emma pondered. I believe it won't take too long. However, there is a strange person in the Jedi Council. He is not someone I know, and from his clothes, he is not a Jedi. What do you mean, Master Emma? Quicksilver asked. Emma was about to speak when someone pushed Quicksilver's legs away, ran to Syndulla and shouted, Dad, Hera. Cham Syndulla greeted with a loving smile and lifted her into the air. Dad, look, the young green-skinned Twi'lek girl said happily, waving the little doll in her hand. Pietro gave this to me and other children. Cham Syndulla smiled and looked at Quicksilver, who just shrugged and said, at least it will make the children feel better. Not long after, the selected Jedi assembled a fleet and entered space and hyperspace, heading to Rylith. The plan was simple. Anakin arrived at the blockade first and attacked the people blocking it. When the fleet led by Obi-Wan, Windu and Darla arrived at Rylus, the blockade would be weakened, or at least caught them off guard, so that the Separatists could not hold the blockade. Once the blockade was broken, the fleet would be dispersed to various locations on the planet Rylus and quickly liberate the main strongholds. And in this mission, Ahsoka would lead her clone squadron alone for the first time, and from then on, she would no longer live under the wings of her master Anakin. Anakin's fleet left hyperspace and consisted of 3 Hunter-class Star Destroyers and 3 Acclamator-class assault landing ships. Admiral Yularen stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Endurance, looking straight ahead at the Confederacy of Independent Systems blockade. Ahsoka led her own squadron while War Machine and Falcon's own fighters flew past her. More starfighters joined in, heading straight for the CI's ships. Aboard the Separatist blockade's capital ship, Captain Martuk had just finished speaking with Separatist leader Walter Tamba when he saw the Republic fleet and starfighters coming towards them. As an experienced tactician, the first thing he noticed was the rather unusual formation of the Republic fighters. This confused the captain quite a bit, as he had never seen any Republic forces use such tactics before. However, there was one famous Jedi Knight who was known for his unconventional and even daring tactics in battle, and that was Anakin. To confirm if the enemy he was facing was Anakin, he ordered a droid to check what the Star Destroyer in front of him was. It didn't take long to confirm that it was the Endurance, and yes, Anakin Skywalker. From what he knew of Anakin, his tactics were often unusual and unexpected. "What's your battle plan, Skywalker?" the captain muttered to himself. Martuk also ordered the Vulture and Hyena starfighters to head straight for the oncoming Republic fighters. On the bridge of the Endurance, Anakin, Captain America, and Yularen were commanding the entire battle. Anakin commanded, "Attention. Red and Green Squadrons defend the fleet. Blue Squadron, Shadow Squadron, and Riptide Squadron prepare for battle. Begin." Captain America muttered to himself. Ahsoka led her squadron to rush towards the enemy, and as they got closer and closer, Ahsoka issued her first order, "Fire." The squadron began to fire at the oncoming group of droid starfighters. Next to Ahsoka, War Machine and Falcon led their squadrons to engage the fighters on the nearest dreadnought and the Mercy frigate. They had already engaged the enemy and lost several Y-wing fighters, but had also basically blown up all the Vulture and Hyena fighters. War Machine said, "Focus, we are approaching the dreadnought. V-19 maintain tight formation." War Machine led the charge against the oncoming wave of droid starfighters, with several V-19 fighters shot down. Y-wing bombers also opened fire on the droid forces. On the other side of the dreadnought, Falcon was leading the Riptide squadron with his clone pilots to engage the droid starfighters. Falcon said, "Riptide squadron, be careful of the dreadnought and fighter fire." He held the controls tightly, avoiding several fighters and the dreadnought's defensive guns. "All fighters, we will target their engines, strand them, and then evacuate. Get into bombing formation." Falcon made clear their mission. V-19 flew over the dreadnought's hangar bay and headed straight for the engine. Falcon flew in the front with a fighter, responsible for clearing obstacles. The droid captain observed the battlefield, and he found that the Republic seemed to have organized a very coordinated and precise attack, with most of their forces mainly attacking the right wing, which seemed to be the weakest for them. Their Hunter-class Star Destroyers and Acclamator-class assault ships were firing on the more vulnerable frigates in the blockade, while 2 squadrons of fighters targeted their only dreadnought. Then came a large squadron of Republic V-19 fighters, heading straight for his ship. "Sir," one of the droids came up to him and reported, "We've got word from the dreadnoughts that they're under heavy attack." Martuk looked toward the damaged dreadnought and noticed the Republic fighter formation. A closer look revealed that their formation, though seemingly loose, seemed to give the illusion that it was easier to hit the target. However, to the experienced captain, it was obvious that the Republic did this on purpose, and it was indeed a clever way to fly. The captain calmly ordered, "Let our reinforcement come in." Anakin's fleet had been attacking for several minutes, with Republic and CI's fighters shuttling back and forth in front of them. He had received word that both Oela's and Obi-Wan's fleets would arrive soon and would crush the enemy's left wing. "Sir." One of the clones spoke up. We've detected 5 new enemy ships coming out of hyperspace. What? Uleran said in horror. It looks like they've turned the right wing into bait. Captain America said solemnly, even though the Endurance had just destroyed an enemy frigate. We must alert the fighter squadron. Anakin said, running to the communication device behind him. All warriors, this is Skywalker. Anakin said through the communicator, the Separatists are calling for reinforcement. All of you immediately retreat back to our defense range and wait for other fleets to support us. I repeat, retreat back to our defense range now. Chapter 73, Rylith Aerial Battle 2. In space, War Machine heard the order as he approached one of the Dreadnought's main weapons, Bomber. Squad, destroy that laser cannon, then we retreat. The Y-wing bombers unleashed proton torpedoes that knocked out the Dreadnought's turbolaser cannons. Well done, Shadow Squadron, War Machine praised, just as several Bountiful class frigates emerged from hyperspace. Shadow Squadron quickly spread out and headed for their own defense circle, while the droid starfighters began to pursue them. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, War Machine saw a violent explosion on the back of the dreadnought they had been aiming at, and the ship was now listed. Aboard the Endurance, Cap and Anakin grinned, the dreadnought at least destroyed before the Separatist reinforcement could arrive. Ahsoka, where are you? Anakin asked worriedly when he noticed she hadn't returned. Master, we are trapped and at risk of being shot down, Ahsoka admitted, desperately trying to avoid the attacks of the Rookery Hook class battleship. Anakin clenched his fists at this, but Cap acted quickly. Rhodes, did you hear that? Captain America asked. Falcon said, hold on, Ahsoka, we'll be right there. Then he quickly assigned the task, Torrent V-19, follow me. Rhodes, you cover the back. Falcon led a dozen V-12s toward Ahsoka's squadron, which was frantically fighting and dodging the incoming CIS starfighters and frigates. At this time, Obi-Wan and Aayla Secura's fleet also arrived. Anakin watched with relief as the newly arrived Republic fleet began to fire on the blockade. Martuk was now concerned as several of the Bountiful frigates began to take heavy damage, while the other 4 dreadnoughts opened fire on the new Republic enemies. Another Rookery Hook class battleship also began to come under attack point in terms of firepower. The two sides were evenly matched. But Captain Martuk knew well that, while the Republic did not usually deploy as many ships as the CIs, their superior firepower made up for the difference in numbers. Though the two sides had fought countless times in the past few months, and the Republic fleet was generally smaller in number, but better in firepower, while the CIs simply relied on the number of ships. With the arrival of 2 Republic fleets, the battle has entered a fierce stage point. Ahsoka has now joined Falcon and War Machine squadron as they take on the flagship of a Rookery Hook class battleship. However, the Rookery Hook class battleship's shields could not be penetrated, and several fighters from Ahsoka's squadron were destroyed in the process. Falcon led his Y-wing team in firing proton torpedoes and dropping ion bombs. The shield was rapidly weakening, but several more Republic starfighters were shot down. To make matters worse, War Machine was beginning to be surrounded by Vulture robots on all sides. He flew over the hangar of the Rookery Hook class battleship and suddenly had a crazy idea. Tap, do you think you can analyze a flight path to the center of the ship? War Machine asked. Right away, Comrade Rhodes. Falcon interjected, please don't tell me you're doing what I think you are doing. I'm afraid so. War Machine said with a smile. What are you talking about? Ahsoka asked over the comms. Ahsoka, prepare to bomb. War Machine said confidently, repositioning himself and flying directly to the hangar with all the Vulture droids chasing him. His fighter was directly hit by the starfighter following behind him. Damn it. War Machine ejected and flew into space, dropping a guided bomb on the fighter he was piloting. He turned around and used his enhanced armor strength to kick the fighter into the oncoming group of Separatist starfighters, then turned and flew directly into the hangar of the Rookery Hook class battleship. Just before Falcon could answer Ahsoka, he asked, are you okay, Rhodes? Very good. War Machine landed in the hangar bay and immediately unleashed his built-in arsenal of weapons upon all the unsuspecting droids. Crouching down, War Machine saw the wreckage of the ship that had blown up behind him fly directly into the hangar, crashing into many of the ships and other control panels, causing many of the droids to panic. prepared to pick me up when I'm done with my mission. The war machine activated its thrusters and flew forward at full speed, deep into the battleship, and conducting a sweep point inside the ship's cockpit. Martuk was told that the interior of the ship was under attack. What does this mean? Martuk shouted. Looks like we have an intruder, sir, one of the droids said, pulling up footage of a war machine flying past the ship at top speed. Martuk was stunned, unsure of what he had seen. On the Endurance, Captain America contacted his fellow Avengers. Are you okay in there, Rhodes? I'm fine, Captain, War Machine replied, punching a vulture robot. At this point, he reached the center of the spacecraft and said to himself, where is the core of this ship? On the bridge of the Rookery Hook class battleship. Martuk was horrified when he saw the video. After learning the layout of the ship, he quickly realized where the Republic robot might go and shouted, "Destroy it before it kills us all." The war machine flew unimpeded, and he knew he only had one chance, so he had no choice but to use more powerful weapons. He raised his arm, aimed the macro missile at the core of the battleship, and then fired directly at the target. War Machine pushed his thrusters away from the explosion and said over the comms, "Falcon, come in through the other hangar entrance." Then, he concentrated on shuttling through the falling debris, the explosions behind him growing louder and louder. Finally, with the shock wave of the explosion, he escaped and flew into the vast space. Rhodes. Falcon called over the comms. "Behind you." Tony's biggest worry after the Battle of New York. "Yes, enough to create Ultron," said Falcon. The Jedi Knights all showed puzzled expressions, wondering who or what this Ultron was. When Anakin mentioned this Ultron, he noticed that Captain America's face was quite grim. Martuk, who had been in a state of panic, asked impatiently, "What is the state of the ship?" "Our shields and engines are down," his command droid replied. Meanwhile, Ahsoka's Blue Squadron was tearing through large groups of Vulture and Hyena starfighters. The CI's blockade was gradually weakened by the continuous onslaught of the Republic fleet. "Ahsoka," Anakin said, contacting her through the comms. "If you take that ship, they will be leaderless." The Rookery Hook class battleship was left in ruins after all of Blue Squadron's fighters fired a large number of iron torpedoes at its bridge. Martuk struggled to regain his footing and said, "I need to get out of here." On the Endurance, Anakin watched with great pride as the Rookery Hook class battleship began to break apart and explode, for this final attack was done by his apprentice Ahsoka. "Looks like we can finish the battle before Master Windu arrives," Captain America said, his eyes always alert. "This is Blue Squadron." Ahsoka's tired voice came over the communicator. "Everyone, go home." Inside the hangar, the different squadrons began to land. They were cheered on by the clone troopers, all of whom congratulated them. "Master Skywalker." Admiral Yularen's voice came over the communicator. "Master Windu is coming with his fleet." "I heard you, Admiral," Anakin responded, turning to look at Captain America. "From one battle to the next. Now, it's time to begin phase 2. Captain America simply nodded and stood up to follow Anakin, knowing that the battle to liberate Rylus had only just begun. Chapter 74: The mysterious creature that made Quicksilver lose. As we all know, Quicksilver is a reckless, hot-headed and impulsive person. After being strengthened by the Mind Stone, he became even more reckless, which once caused headaches for his friends and nightmares for his enemies. "What is that? That blurry figure again? Quick, call the commander." Quicksilver paused, looking down at the small droid base he had just destroyed with the help of the surviving members of Clone Battalion 71. He casually walked over to a droid head and picked it up, noting that it was still making funny noises. Quicksilver scoffed. "How do these guys form an army? All they do is obey and say the same thing over and over again." Sergeant Grit curled his lips and said, "That's easy for you to say. They can't even touch you, so how can they be a threat in your eyes? We are different." Quicksilver just shrugged and casually threw the robot's head away, saying, "Then search this base." As they researched the Separatists' purpose for invading Rylus, They discovered that the planet was so important for many reasons, but the most important one was its proximity to a hyperspace gateway that led directly to the Republic's core worlds. But the place they are currently in is just an abandoned village, so this raises the question, what are the Separatists doing here? All in all, this location does not mean much to the Separatists and does not have any strategic advantages, because there is open space all around. Are we missing something? Six wondered loudly. Quicksilver pondered, then he looked out the window of the base. In front of them, there was nothing but the Twi'lek village. However, Quicksilver narrowed his eyes slightly and leaned forward, trying to see more clearly. Hey, guys. Quicksilver shouted to the clones in the base. Did you see that? What did you see? Asked Gretel, standing next to Quicksilver. That. Quicksilver pointed to the roof of a Twi'lek house. There's something on the tree over there. I don't know what it is. It looks blue. Sergeant Grid turned to the nearest soldier and said, Number 6. Number 6 wordlessly handed the sergeant a telescope, and Gretel looked at the location Quicksilver had just mentioned. Do you see it now? HMM. Gretel muttered to himself, what on earth is going on? Want to go and take a look? Quicksilver asked. That means the clones in the base only saw blurs of silver, blue, and white passing them. The flying model stopped in the forest. Quicksilver approached the object cautiously and found that the blue object was a little strange. He said to himself, what on earth is this? It should look alive. What exactly is going on? I don't know. Quicksilver shrugged and said, I think maybe you do know. Jarrett looked up and shook his head. I've never seen anything like this before. Do you know what this is? Asked Quicksilver. Pietro. Wait. Don't touch it. We don't even know what it is. Quicksilver carefully placed his hand on the thing. It was a little soft. Quicksilver frowned and felt it carefully. He heard a strong thump. No. It was a heartbeat. This thing was alive. So, what is this? Quicksilver rolled his eyes. Grit, I just put my hand on this thing. That doesn't tell me what it is. Quicksilver's face suddenly became tense as he saw his hand slowly begin to be sucked into the unknown creature. Second, can't get my hand out. Quicksilver said loudly, trying to pull his hand back, but to no avail. Gretel, who was somewhat aware of Quicksilver's love of pranks, said nonchalantly, hey, now's not the time for pranks. Quicksilver frowned and said, I really can't take it out. Without a second thought, Gretel grabbed Quicksilver's arm and began to pull, only to find that it had no effect. What the hell? Both Gretel and Quicksilver now tried to back away with all their might as Quicksilver's arm began to sink deeper into the blue substance. Grit, let go. Quicksilver said. What? Let go. I'll try. Quicksilver said firmly, and then his arms began to vibrate at a strong frequency point. Grit stepped back and watched as Quicksilver's arm began to become a complete blur, and soon, the Avenger broke free. Quicksilver growled, massaging his bloody arm, cursing, what the hell is this? You okay? Come on. What is it? Oh my god, it hurts so much. Grit cautiously looked back at the blue object and noticed that the trace of Quicksilver's arm was clearly visible and then slowly spread until it finally disappeared. Sergeant Grit was also a little scared and said, maybe we should report this, then. Let's go back. Quicksilver shook his numb arm and said. He clenched and unclenched his fist repeatedly. As the pain slowly subsided, his arm finally regained consciousness. Meanwhile, the Republic fleet was preparing to attack the droid base above Rylus, but the Separatists also had a large fleet of starfighters that harassed their ships, making it more difficult for them to land. Arla Secura will lead her 327th with support from Captain America and Falcon to destroy the anti-aircraft guns in the city of Kritka while rescuing the enslaved Twi'leks. Master Kenobi and his Ghost Squad, along with Ant-Man and the Wasp, recaptured Naboo City. Only in this way could the Republic Army have a safe landing zone. Mace Windu remained with the fleet, while Anakin, Ahsoka, and War Machine led the starfighter squadrons to hold off the Separatist starfighter fleet. Only after retaking the two cities, Mace Windu was responsible for leading all the clone troops to land and then carry out the next battle plan. Ella flies with Captain America and Falcon to their target, the city of Kritka. Due to the open terrain, the Lats are more vulnerable to attack by robots during landing. However, the planes also provide the Republic with the advantage of landing all-terrain tactical assault walkers and reconnaissance walkers for rapid maneuverability. Cap and Falcon were quiet and focused as they landed, Arla standing in front of them with Commander Bly beside her. Around them was a squadron of clones, as well as other clones, that had descended to the surface. Among the clones, there are 3 familiar clones that Captain America had worked with in the Battle of Meriden: Flash, Cameron, and Lucky Point. When all the gunships reached the ground, Ella jumped out with a lightsaber in hand, along with Bly and Captain America, and the Falcon flew into the sky. The AAT tanks and robots in front began to attack fiercely. Many clones could only use the all-terrain tactical assault walkers for cover. Cap ran ahead, hiding under some rocks, with Bly, Arla, and a few clones crouching behind him. "We need to find a way to penetrate one of their flanks," Captain America said immediately after observing the battlefield. "Those spider tanks are not easy to get around, Captain Rogers," Commander Bly said as he fired at the robots. A few moments later, dozens of clones, 2 walkers, and several scout walkers all opened fire on the right side of the droids, where their defenses were weakest. The droids naturally returned fire, but with such concentrated fire on their weakest side, the droids soon began to be destroyed bit by bit. More robots began to arrive from the base to reinforce the firepower on the right wing. At this time, Captain America signaled Falcon to drop a smoke bomb in the air. A large cloud of hazy smoke burst forth, covering much of the space between the Republic troops and the Separatists. Ella and Captain America led the charge, followed by at least 30 clones. They advanced forward using the distraction of smoke bombs acting on instinct. Captain America raised his shield and knocked down several robots easily, then raised his arm and swung the shield with all his strength at the robots in front of him. The shield quickly began to ricochet around the crowd of robots, knocking down all of them. Captain America looked back to see Aayla Secura rushing towards the droids. She wielded her lightsaber gracefully, destroying a B-2 super droid in a matter of moments. Bly stood his ground and led the clones in firing at the robots, who were obviously caught off guard and hurriedly sought cover. In the sky, Falcon fought robots operating single soldier aerial platforms while destroying clones on the ground. Chapter 75 Lovers in Attack. Obi-Wan also led a dozen large gunships to fly at full speed towards the city they designated. As they approached, a series of huge explosions filled the air. Ant-Man and the Wasp shrank and checked their equipment, preparing to rush out. Obi-Wan tensed up, looked at the 2 Avengers, and asked softly, "Are you 2 ready?" Soon, as the hatch opened, all the clones ran out and took cover in the forest to continue their mission, only to have half of the gunships shot down by droid ground forces in the process. As they passed through the forest, red blaster bolts began to rain down on them from the front, and the droids opened fire on them. The clones quickly hid behind tree trunks and fired back. "I wish this forest was denser," Ant-Man muttered to himself. At the same time, Hope took out her blaster and Obi-Wan joined the battle with a lightsaber in hand. Ant-Man had shrunk down and was jumping from branch to branch towards a robot station. "That bunker is going to be a problem, General," Cody said. At this time, Ant-Man had landed in front of the bunker, and the grenade thrown by the robot exploded. Ant-Man stood on a piece of rubble and reached above the robot base. The moment he jumped down, he kicked a robot in the neck, killing it on the spot. Obi-Wan asked in the communicator, "Ant-Man, where are you now?" "Just got into the bunker and cleared a path for you and the others right away," Ant-Man said, jumping in front of the next robot and punching it in the face. "Thank you very much." Meanwhile, Wasp has shrunk and flies to the bunker to help her boyfriend. As she flies to one of the robots, the B-1 robot notices her. "Hey, look, a small humanoid." "What are you saying there?" The robot pointed at the Wasp, a little finesse. The Wasp smiled brightly, then kicked the B-1 robot's head off. "Huh." The other B-1 panicked for a moment. "What is that?" As soon as the question was asked, the Wasp and the clone troopers who had already entered launched a joint attack and destroyed a group of robots. "Don't worry about me, Scott." Hope shuttled through the group of B-1 robots and attacked them, while not forgetting to remind her boyfriend point. At the same time, Obi-Wan led 2 clones to open a breakthrough from the left wing. Seeing that both wings were greatly weakened, Cody was about to call on his troops to advance the attack when suddenly, the defensive wall exploded violently. This sudden change made many clones hide behind the trees cautiously. After a while, they looked up and saw an AAT tank slowly coming out of a hole in the bunker wall, followed by a large group of B-1 robots and B-2 super battle robots. Super battle droid. One of the clones yelled, "Watch out for those missiles." Cody yelled, and as several missiles flew over his head, he ducked in time and survived. The droid infantry began firing at the clones. Obi-Wan, lightsaber in hand, came up from the left flank with 2 clones to support them. Obi-Wan deflected several blaster bolts, slashing at 2 B-1 droids at once, then spun his lightsaber and stabbed a B-2 super battle droid diagonally as it ran up from behind him. Cody, Kenobi called to his commander, "Fall back and regroup. We cannot risk any more casualties." However, the AAT tank turned its cannon directly and aimed it at Cody, ready to annihilate the clone commander. Kenobi's eyes widened in horror and he wanted to save his commander, but the large number of robots besieging him made it difficult for him to do so. However, the AAT tank suddenly disappeared at this critical moment. The shooting stopped momentarily, and all the droids and clones looked towards where the tank had been. Where's the tank?" asked one of the battle droids. "Oh, right here." The robots looked over and saw Ant-Man tossing a small toy-like object up and down in his palm. "Want it to come back to you? We already have one," Wasp added, revealing several shrunken vehicles from her belt, one of which was an AAT tank. The robots looked at each other. "Yes, then. I'll give it back to you." Ant-Man throws the shrunken tank at the robot group and then throws a disc at it. The result is obvious. The enlarged AAT tank crashes into the robot army. Since the AAT tank is upside down when it lands, it is basically damaged and inoperable. Especially the tank barrel has been severely deformed. The clones were stunned by the scene. They witnessed Ant-Man and the Wasp's ability to shrink and grow, and were a little in awe of this incredible ability. Had never seen anything like it. "I had almost forgotten they were capable of that," Obi-Wan muttered, as surprised as his men. You okay, Cody?" the Wasp asked, walking over to Commander Cody, who was just sitting on the ground staring blankly at the tank that was shrinking and then growing. Yeah, I guess I should be fine," Cody slurred, a rare moment of panic on his part. Cody struggled to snap out of his trance and asked, "General, what is our next move? We must learn a lesson and not attack rashly again. We must first find out what the robots have prepared for us. Cody, send the best scouts to the front, and the rest of the people stay where they are to rest," Obi-Wan said. "What about us?" the Wasp asked, pointing at herself and Ant-Man. "If possible, you two should go scout further away," Obi-Wan said sincerely. Ant-Man thought for a moment and said, "Hope, you go with the clone scouts. I will stay with Obi-Wan in case of any unexpected situations." Just after the Wasp leaves, a scout droid picks up some audio nearby, and in search of the source, the droid lands on a nearby rooftop, where it sees several clones talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ant-Man. Seeing this, the robot began to send messages to the commander. As Obi-Wan, Ant-Man, and Cody were seriously discussing their next tactics, the reconnaissance drone adjusted its lens to zoom in and focus all audio on the conversation below, trying to obtain the Republic Army's battle plan. However, before it could continue, a force knocked it off the roof. The sound alerted the GD general and several clones below. Looking up, they saw Ant-Man quickly grow to normal size, holding a Separatist scout droid in his hand. "You thought you could steal our battle plans, did you? You might be wrong," Ant-Man said, grabbing the robot. Commander Cody quickly drew his blaster and carefully pointed it at the robot in Ant-Man's hands. To prevent it from escaping, the poor robot was eventually thrown off the roof by Ant-Man and died instantly. But this also made everyone realize that they had to take action as soon as possible. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.